and it was very respectful. That's the main thing about it.
But to me, Flabos are conservative. They're passive. They're not aggressive. They're not
we not
loud.
Flabo is aggressive in one way, in enjoying their own self. They're aggressive their own self. I will not go somewhere for Flabo. Ula more. No, I have to tap the energy into you. But this time around in Soufre had all the energy. My brother Soufre belly, and the people in Soufre they sweet, including the food. My brother. So
what you saw in Soufre, because I just heard you said Soufre is nice.
Yes, sir.
You know,
no, I'm being honest. You see, when I just my glass was up all the time, but when I just going down the hill by the view, I see my brother told me I didn't take any plane. How can I be in Dubai right now?
So you say we have a piece of Dubai.
We have a piece of Dubai in Soufre. Mama say, all right, let's not go there. But Soufre is amazing. If my people, you need to visit Soufre. Oh, I have to go back there, you know.
So there's a difference in Soufre right now.
A big difference. A very, very, very big difference.
And after that, I saw that you all went to Grizzly. Tell me about the experience.
Well, the thing about that, see, the experience, what made me like Grizzly the most. I had to be in Grizzly for a certain time. I think I had to be there for 4 o'clock.
Yes.
And I stayed in Soufre not getting any bus. I got drive on that day.
So you didn't get the VIP?
My partner was VIP. Don't mind him.
Listen.
Let him give you the full story. He was VIP.
You did not get the VIP to Grizzly, but you got it to Soufre.
No, he got it to Grizzly. Let him tell you.
It was much better to Grizzly still. So I spent a little time there. I get a call, my brother. Tell my brother, don't worry about no bus. We'll be going to Soufre to Grizzly via the sea.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had a big boat for myself with a couple of tourists surrounding to give me a couple of massages. That's boss Al. They tell me drop a little thing for them. I just drop a little thing, not knowing one of the girls on the boat, her name was Tara, and dropping a little freestyle. The girl name was Tara. My brother, oh my God, you know already. And trust me, on that boat it was amazing. Drinks there. But big up Spider, man. Yeah, man, I have to bring up the voice there. Without him, that would not be possible. Big up yourself again, Deborah, Mrs. Montut. The treatment in Grizzly was amazing, my brother. When I get to Grizzly, my partner said, boy, now I'm looking for your son. Just put me on the bus and tell me, let's go. It's too early for a superstar to be there. Wait, go for me.
Wow.
You take me to somewhere in Babuno. Then we go to, I can't remember where exactly, and pick up some people. And the man have music on his bus. You swear. That was Power Plus back in the days. And the Flabo, and we passing town, and I see some children doing. When I said Flabo, they did the Flabo, yeah, boy. I was they're doing the Flabo. What more we need again?
That's
and you will tell me that I will vote against this government to do what, to be there like that.
So do Mama
if I vote that government out, I will eat my nails. And I'll be vexed after a while. Maybe the first few days I'll be smiling, but after a while, guys, man.
Yes, and the thing.
All right. Let's give good evening to Honorable Alan Shastney. He just walked in, gracing us with his presence. Good.
Great to be here.
All right.
Looking very good.
All right, I'll go ahead.
Yes, I was saying, the vibe on the ground, like when you see the people catching the field of the flam, look, everybody to look up here already, like he was there already. And that's the kind of thing, man. As I say, for you not to go out there bite your nails if you vote this government out, you're doing much with yourself. En reality, my young people, as I say, I'm there for the young people, V4 North and V4 South, and I'm telling you, there's no if, no but, no maybe. We're going to London.
So, and the other thing that amazed me more is that you only sing Flabo songs.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. My brother, if I ever sing a song and it's not about Flabo, my grandmother will wait from that day. I'm telling you. It's not that, as of the kind of joy I get in the Flabo vibe, not to say I hate people from the opposition side, like I hate Labour, but the vibe, I feel a different vibe. What's the time is something Flabo? I could be at the hospital, but I want to move. Because you feel in the vibe. So whatever I tell you Labour, you start your Labour. It's not my home.
You go there?
No, that's fine. You're fine now.
I'm still at my home. But when you are Flabo, and I tell you right now there, you can just go in before and stay in your window and say, Flabo! You're saying something that some yellow flowers is growing. Yeah, I'm telling you. We saw going to London this election. You can stay in your window and shout, Flabo! You see some yellow flowers glowing. That's what we're talking about.
I want a whole video of that happening. Like, I get so excited.
That's what will happen. Maybe it's not like before. I'm being honest with you. Before in the past, we not had that vibe. We started with let me try and get it. Leon Theodore. That time I could not vote. Nancy did well. She started the platform to grow for us to grow up. All right. Prince did, let me see, at least 45% of the job. Trust me, that was the time I was feeling the vibe to campaign because I really, really, really wanted the MP that day to go out. But you see, this time,
London is coming for different.
my brother, when I'm being honest with you, I wanted Prince Ambrose to lose the by-election or runoff, however they call it. I wanted him to, because I'm not feeling the vibe of campaigning with Prince Ambrose because you'll just think to that maybe the vibe you'll get if although both of them are Christian. But I felt a different vibe with Vincent London.
So you get an adrenaline.
My girl, I'm telling you, I had my own show events in London. A Facebook show every Wednesday, and the view. I think that's the only person that have a Facebook show. We had over 1,000 viewers watching at once. That's the very first show I did events in London. And I'm telling you, you see this election, my smile, what dear just have. There's no if again, no but, no baby. The young people fed up of the past. We want to see something new happening in Fort North. And one of the new things that happened under this government, Grace Plainfield have lights. Although they're saying like that the light is not good, they take it from Dennery, they bring it to Grace. And I'm telling you, that's the same light Grace have, that's the same light Philip Masney Grounds have. We play Black Cat finals in Vifort South, we play SPL in Vifort South. The same thing can happen with Grace. London put a plan that they're going to put some
bleachers.
Some bleachers, but the people are looking at how can that happen? They might just give you a joy and an idea of what you want to do. Where you're going to get that. You're so against your Vifort North. You're already how are you going to say that? You're already marching against it. The same thing about the whole Vifort. Vifort not there for development. I don't know why. Both Vifort North and Vifort South, they're fighting against what's good for them. And I'm telling you, Vifort North and Vifort South, when we tag together, but Vifort North for sure, when we tag together, we will be in power, both Vifort North and Vifort South. There's no way you can come and oppose. How can you oppose development and you have children growing up? You have children around you. You want to have grassroots. You want to have all type of activities for the children to grow up. How can you go against development? It could be your party doing it, another party. It's good. Let's go with it. At the end of the day, I don't get it. My grandchildren will get it, even though grandchildren not yet, but somebody will get it. The Prime Minister. Let me before I say something. What is so sweet? You have an uncle, and that uncle being just like a father. You know when you have an uncle that really love you, and anything you as that uncle, after you growing up, that uncle want to have you on your shoulder. You believe you'll never go against that uncle?
Yeah, we have Uncle Shaz.
I'm telling you. So how can you go against Uncle Shaz? And Uncle Shaz change from uncle to daddy Shaz.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
One time.
My people, there's no if, no but, no maybe. We are not changing the Prime Minister that we have there. When we changing the Prime Minister, he had asked for 2 terms. PM, that's not enough. That's not enough.
You say what, 5 more terms?
My brother, the plan,
the vision.
listen to me,
The plan,
the PM, not even me. There are members I know for sure from Vifort North that voted the Labour Party last election. They're my close buddy. I will not mention them to be honest with you. And they tell me there's no way with the vision Alan Michael Shasney have, Uncle Shas, Daddy Shas, there's no way they will vote against those developments. And that's young people with vision, young people that want to see things happening in the South. My brother, I'm from Vifort North. I'm from VG. All right, I'm the first person that bring Daddy Shas to VG. All right, I'm from, and you're walking in Viewfort, especially by the in Viewfort, almost like a center of a building called Sophia there. I used to be one of the best restaurants I was told growing up. I think I only ate there once or twice during cricket time, and that was there's trees growing up in the thing. If the government decided to do something with it, people will try to protest against it, and like a zombie, just like a female day to magic after that day. My brother, Vifort South, people say Flabo, people say Vifort South is a good storm. It is a good storm. You want to come and build an administration building where the Wasco building is happening there right now, and we have where they have the NIC building in the way you have all those offices, and it's just empty there. So what will happen when you move the NIC office down, bring it to the town? You just forget about every single thing. You only forget. I'm thinking about Bruceville. No, my people said, Lucia, I'm pleading with you. I'm begging you, stay with this government. so we can see the development. We need to see a tourist boat. I need to make some shaku pie cocoa to go and sell in Vieux-Fort on my own. I need to have a tourist walking in main Vieux-Fort. Let me bring them to Vigier to see the cave, to see the old sugar mill we have in Vigier. We have plans already in Vieux-Fort North for the tourists. So why my people of Vieux-Fort North and Vieux-Fort South will vote against this government so we won't get that development? We want to die in slavery or what? We need to see different faces. I need to see maybe I could get a mamacita in
You know what? I will go on break. On that note, we'll go to break.
Yes.
And then when we come back from the break, then we'll hear from our Honorable Prime Minister,
Oh, yes.
who's in
Yes,
studio
indeed.
with us.
Yes.
And I'm very sure the young people are very excited to have him in studio for us to get some information from him and future plans for us young persons in St. Lucia. So we'll go on a short break and then we'll come back and have some more fun. And Alprince, behave yourself.
I'm always behave. I'm there for my party. I'm not stopping,
Ay. All right, so let's go on a short break and then we'll come right back on.
I'm here this morning witnessing a milestone for St. Jude's. This is a new hospital. This is a hospital that's going to take the South for the next 50, 60 years. And that's the ambition that we have for the South. And today we're witnessing putting up of the panels, which is a new technology to adapt to climate change, resistant and more efficiency with our air conditioning system. So I'm so proud for the people in the South to have this world-class hospital here that will be delivered very soon. Let's keep working.
Mr. Montwood has done a lot for his constituency. In terms of education, I feel like Mr. Montwood has done a great job. He has supplied his constituency with supplies to go back to school, notebooks, pens, paper. Also, he gives backpacks to the students of the communities. On that note, I feel Mr. Montwood should be re-elected again.
Let's keep working. Let's keep moving. Let's keep working.
Ojo Labs continues its successful artificial intelligence center operation that was established in 2017. The global pandemic simply forced the company to adopt a new work-from-home model. The company employs over 420 people and is actively seeking additional persons as part of its expansion plans. We've witnessed similar positivity in the business processing operations subsector. Not only were the 550 employees retained by ITEL BPO, but an additional 400 jobs are expected now that the retrofit of the second factory shell is near completion. Even more remarkable, Mr. Speaker, is the plans for a third site that would increase the overall company workforce to 1,200 persons. Between Ojo and ITEL BPO, we are seeing the injection of over $4.5 million in salaries a month in the South.
All right, and we're back. It's super exciting evening, huh? We had Boss Al, Lala, Teletubby, however name you want to call him, Makambu.
The Makabu guy.
Right,
Yeah.
so
The yellow guy.
the yellow guy?
Yeah.
No, they still call him Makambu.
I prefer it. You can always eat. You see flambo. Anything they can call you can eat. Macabu, apple, bell pepper. Even the juice they put me, I can drink that juice. I can
Even an orange juice.
Even an orange juice. A black flambo, I will always eat.
I also saw the Rap Macabre as well.
Yeah, they call him the Right Macabre as well. All right, okay, so good evening to you,
Good evening.
Mr. Alan Chasney. How are you doing?
Great, Natoya. How are you?
I'm good, I'm
Queen
good.
Natoya.
All right, so we'll go right into your interview. We'd first like to know your story. So basically, where you started as a young person and to where you are now.
Wow. So, I started growing up in St. Lucia. I went to Miss Lake. I went to the Anglican school. My nickname at the Anglican school was Squash Fada.
Quash Father.
Squash Fada.
Squash Father.
Yeah, 'cause I don't even remember that. Well, you two guys too young. They used to have these little plastic thermoses, right, with a cap, and they would have like a string around it. And I would always leave it at home, and so my father would always be bringing it afterwards. So they call it Squash Fada. And in those days, VG Airport actually had a pedestrian crossing. Right, so you would be able to walk where the fire station is. There would be a gate. You could walk across from the gate. So from VG, you didn't have to walk all the way around. You actually would walk across the place. So
Interesting.
they were always calling my mother and say, "Your son's crossing the airport again."
Wow.
And I would always be sneaking out from home and going down to Prince Alfred Basin.
Okay.
My father was in the shipping business with small little boats. And I just used to love hanging down with the crew and just listening to the stories.
Okay.
And in those days, Faux La Chaux is where they used to make the boats. It was actually a little slipway
Okay.
in there. And every Saturday, they would take me down there to get a haircut. And in those days, I don't know if you remember the tweezers, the clippers they used to have. They didn't have the electronic shaver like they have today, right? So and the guy would be there and he'd be oiling the whole thing. Sometimes they didn't oil so well, and the thing would not cut your hair. And I remember going to Gaiety and going to Clark. And those days, in the younger days, the bigger movies were Samson and Hercules movies, and eventually it became karate movies.
Oh.
And depending on how much money you had, you either went to pit or you went to box. And as you got older, I remember you would pay a fella to go and buy a ticket for you. Now the shows would hardly ever sell out, but everybody would be rushing the box, and you'd be sticking your hand in the hole to try to get the thing. So if you had a date in particular, you didn't want to get all sweat up and everything, so you pay a fella a little thing to go and get your thing. So I left here when I was about 7.
Okay.
And we moved to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
My father, as I was in the shipping business, and he bought some bigger boats. And I lived in Puerto Rico for 5 years, so that's why I learned how to speak Spanish.
Okay.
I left Puerto Rico in 1972 and went to Miami. And so I was going to school for about a year and a half. My father was retired from business, and then he got really bored. And so he decided to come back home. So I came back home in 1974.
Okay.
It was the year that I went to comprehensive school. It was the first year of comprehensive school. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't really like it a lot. Right? There was no sports.
Ouch.
And there was like Canadian teachers, and I remember all these guys, they were like sweating, but I mean, it was a beautifully built school in those days. It was a brand new school. But I just didn't feel like I was going to go anywhere. And I complained, and so my parents moved me to St. Mary's. And I remember going to St. Mary's, and you would sit in the same classroom the whole day, like the teachers would come to you, right? And again, there was no sports. And I was I was not one of those kids that felt the need to follow any clique.
Okay.
And you had to convince me. So I was not one, again, those students that really liked memorizing things.
Okay.
I needed to understand. And so I'd ask a lot of questions, and it got me into a lot of trouble.
And you still ask a lot of questions now?
Still ask a lot every day you ask questions. You got to always be sure, and how the questions answered depending whether you believe it or not. I mean, it's much easier today because you can Google it, right?
Yes. Everything. You can Google everything now.
Yes.
Google everything and ascertain for yourself. And I remember one day I got into a big fight with a couple of the professors over the Hess refinery, proposed refinery. And so they said, man, because of my argument, they said, man, you're a monkey. And monkeys belong in trees. And there was one plum tree by the basketball court So they made me go and sit in the tree. I remember sitting in the tree looking back at everybody in the class in those days. Boy, fellas would really give it to you, no? School would end at 2:30. There was never any sporting programs. And I campaigned bitterly. I mean, I had it, my father, he had bought a new house in St. Lucia at Shock. And, I would be water skiing. I had a life. And I said to my father, if I stay here, I'm not going to make it, right? I need more. I need to be pushed a lot harder. And so eventually he let me go to boarding school. And so I went to boarding school in Quebec, in Canada. There was a guy who we'd met who lived in Marigot Bay, who recommended the school, and also the DeVos had gone to the same school. It was an all-boys school, and it was 110 kids, and I can tell you, I just, the greatest memories from that. And I remember coming back home that summer, and my father sat me down. So he says, "So you want to go to university?" I said, "Well, yeah." He says, "So how are you going to pay for it?" I said, "What do you mean?" "You." He said, No. He said, "You need to pay for yourself." So he said, when you come home for the summer, you need to go and work. So if you're willing to work for me, you can work for me, I'll save the money, and that will help you go to university. So from the time I was 15, I worked every summer. I would come home for 2.5 months. I would have to work for the 2 months, and I would get 2 weeks vacation. When I came home from Christmas, I would get 4 days vacation.
What?
And I had to work the whole time.
No.
And sometimes I came home for Easter, but not very often. And as I got older, the job changed. So, it started off, I learned how to do the telex machine and basically do messaging. And then I became a driver. And then I would go on the ships. So I worked as a crewman. So I carried cement bags and cleaned hatches, did my turn at the wheel, spent weeks on a ship, and then eventually it became managing a ship and getting the cargo for the ship. So by the time I was 18, 19, and so that's how I kind of grew up. And then I went to university. I decided to stay in Quebec because I had traveled so much in my life. I wanted to stay there, and I went to Bishop's University. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Started off in political science. I asked myself, what am I going to do for a political science degree? I really didn't want,
I know, right?
Really didn't want to do law. In those days, that's what you would do.
Yeah.
So I'd started doing a thing called political economy. And I said, man, okay, that's not going to that's like halfway between everything.
I believe that was the calling.
It was the calling already,
It was actually the calling.
But he wasn't getting it.
So the universe was actually
Telling
me,
you,
hey,
you need
to
it.
do this, you need to do that. Let's manifest.
Yeah, so I was finally loving economics. And I remember particularly when I did development economics, I really gravitated to that. And then after graduating, so I got a double degree in economics and political science. I then came back home and I got a job as an administrative cadet in the Ministry of Planning. Mr. Dovern and Mr. Venner were the heads, and we had Adrian Auger, Lambert, Nelson, a whole bunch of guys were there. So I started off as an administrative cadet, and I eventually became Economist 1 and Economist 2. I was there for about 3 years, and then I really felt I had exhausted what I could contribute in that position, and I learned a lot. Sir John had come back, so that was from 1984 until about 1987. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go and do my an MBA at Columbia University. And I love their program because it was an international program. And I had done some courses at American University while I was an economist, as well as going to the IMF and World Bank. So I went to the university to get my credits, to get the certificate for the credits. And the guy said, well, look, we have a really great program here called development banking. So I'm like, what's that? So they said it's a combination of economics and business. And I said, well, okay. And they said, well, because of your credits, you would be automatically accepted. I said, okay, so when do I start? They said, tomorrow.
Wow.
So I never made it to New York to go to Columbia, and I stayed there. And then an opportunity came to apply for a job called ESIPS, Eastern Caribbean Investment Promotion Services, which was established by the USAID to promote the Eastern Caribbean for manufacturing. So I felt, okay, I'm obviously no experience in this thing, and I probably going to become last. So I read as much as I could. I went and did as many interviews to really engage my mind and educate myself on what the job was all about. And I got offered a job. So I started doing my master's degree part-time and working full-time. And after the second year, a gentleman called Swinburne Lestrade from Dominica, who was the director, said to me, look, I'm going to be leaving. So if you want to apply to my position, you have to have your master's degree. So I decided to quit ESIPS and go back full-time at school. And I finished off my degree and I applied for his position. I got down, it was two of us for the position. And I remember the interview and the guy said, so what would you do? And I said, look, there's no future in light manufacturing because for us to succeed, it requires America to give us concessions.
Okay.
So I believe that I don't like having my future in somebody else's hands, right? So I'd rather know I'm working for something and I can win the race, you know? So I said to him, look, ESIPS in my mind needs to broaden to include tourism. And I remember in those days I had done nothing for tourism, but I already started to understand that the economic impact of tourism would be much greater, and we have an advantage in the world in tourism. If people close their eyes and say, where do they want to go? Over 90% of Americans want to come to the Caribbean.
Yes, they do.
So the key is, how do you convert that demand into actual reality? And so I felt that it would be great for the Eastern Caribbean countries, the OECS countries, to have ESIPS as their marketing agency in the U.S.
Okay.
But in those days, the American government would not sponsor anything to support tourism. Okay, so they came back and said, look, we can probably give you the job, but you would have to get off this tourism kick. And I said, I'm not interested. And it just so happened, I got a job offer to work for Windjammer Landing that was just opening up in St. Lucia. So I helped them with their whole marketing arrangements and stuff like that. And then after I graduated, they offered me to come home to be their VP of special projects. They had sold a bunch of villas, but we had this alien landlord's license process, and they had like 40 sales they couldn't convert because they were having difficulties. So I came in, and my good friend Lambert Nelson was working at the Crown Lands, and obviously being in government, I knew the whole system.
Yeah.
And I was able to get all 40 applications approved like in 6 weeks. So I said, okay, there's nothing else for me to do here.
Wow.
And so they said, well, look, we're going to offer you the job to be the head of marketing and sales for Windjammer. So I said, okay. So I started that, and 3 months after I got the job, the Gulf War broke out. Right? And basically business stopped for 3 months.
International.
Wow.
And I remember getting on the road to start building up demand. And I remember one weekend where I couldn't even come home. I developed eczema in my hands from all the hard work and the stress, because I was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I would be doing sales calls somewhere in the States, fly back home on the Friday, work at the hotel the Saturday, the Sunday, and leave on the Monday to go back at the road. I was doing that almost for like 10 weeks. I was beat, right? And when I came back home, I mean, it was like we were doing a lot of stuff. So, you know, Jean St. Rose and Claudine, who are at Coco Palm right now, that's where I met all these guys, and we just really bonded together. So that was really a great experience.
Okay.
And then Mr. Doverne called me back up one day, and he says, look, we need a director of tourism, right? Would you be interested in getting the position? And I said, sure. So I applied. I was 31 years of age. I got the job, but the then Minister of Tourism was a gentleman called George Mallet. And Mr. Mallet, I don't think really wanted me to become the Director of Tourism, but I think that Sir John wanted me to become. And he made it very difficult. I don't have any animosity towards him about that, but he made it very, very difficult. So eventually I accepted the job, and I took over. And look, we revolutionized tourism in those days. You know, we started there used to be a thing here called Aqua Action. And I remember that was the first time I ever met Timothy Polio. We had like a stand, and we used to bring down the Cypress Gardens people, and it was this big thing they used to do on by the causeway.
Yeah, I remember my mom telling me stories about that.
So I said, you know what, I'm going to put my heart into this thing. After the first year, I said to the board, this is not going to fly. And so they said, what are we going to do? I said, we should do this jazz festival.
Wow.
So hold up, stop, stick up his just now. He just mentioned a jazz festival, right? The then controversy out there now is that the Alan Chasney killed the jazz festival. So how could somebody that recommended
initiated it
exactly that's like
kill the jazz festival?
Yeah, so I remember I went to school in Montreal, and Montreal has a very famous jazz festival. And the jazz festival was very intimate. They had live shows, free shows, and they had paid shows. And so wanted to do this jazz festival, and then there was a proposal from a lady called Karen Joyner, who came and said, okay, they want to do this musical festival, so we made it into a jazz festival, and she was going to produce it, the whole thing, right? I was really good friends with American Airlines at the time, so brought down American Airlines, and American introduced us to a gentleman called Paxton Baker. And Paxton was this young guy, and he was producing the Aruba Jazz Festival. Because in those days, it was just really Aruba. There was a small festival in Barbados, and there used to be a jazz festival in a place called Ocho Rios. And those were really the only jazz festivals in the Caribbean. And so Paxton came down, and we started putting together this jazz festival. I remember going to look for a venue. So we went on this scouting mission all over the island, and I took them to Pigeon Island. And when we walked behind the fort, facing Le Sport, and I turned around, so you had this like natural inclination. The wind was coming from behind you, right? So you'd be seeing Pigeon Island, and then the crowd would be facing the stage would be facing the ocean. With the rock bird, what is it called? The little island that's out there. Is it Turtle Island? Not Turtle Island. Anyway,
can't remember
that little island that's out there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I said, wow, this is fantastic. So we put in an application to the National Trust, who were running the place at the time, and it was turned down. So I was disappointed, but we moved on to look for some other venues. And a guy called Coco Charles, that was running, who was on there, he called me up. He said, I know we turned you down, but would you do me a favor? And I said, sure. He said, can you come out and show me what is it that you're seeing? Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, to cut you short, you saw the vision.
Yes.
So he's actually a visionary.
Yes, and
so
I'm a bit baffled there.
He did not see the vision.
No.
So you had to show him what you saw.
Yeah,
so when I took him to Pigeon Island, and I remember him standing, we were standing by the waterfront, and he looked around and I explained to him all the elements, and he started crying.
Wow.
Right? I said, man, what's wrong? He said, I've come here since I was a boy. I never saw that. He goes, so leave it to me. Right? And 3 days later he came back, and the trust allowed us to do the festival there. And it was so funny that the first year they would not allow us to put a stage in the ground. So the metal stage? We couldn't put a hole in the ground. So we built the stage on river rocks. Yeah? And the first show that we did was at the Cultural Center. And I would say to you, 90% of the audience or more were Martinicans and maybe some people from Trinidad. St. Lucians were just not into jazz. I remember like the week before the festival, a gentleman called Keats Compton, who was working at Cable Wireless, and that's a long story in terms of the first $100,000. Right, because when you went to a businessman here, I remember my father-in-law, who was running Coca-Cola, he said, so how much you want to sponsor the event for? And I said, I want $30,000 US, right, from Coke. He just started to laugh, right? So a sponsorship for them in those days would be like $1,500.
Oh,
that was a total madman. But Keats Compton came on board. They gave $30,000 US. And I remember him calling me up a week before. Two people came to my office. Keats came to my office, and God, I'm trying to remember the gentleman who runs Domino's Pizza right now, Mr. Clark, Leslie Clark. So they came into my office, I remember at Point Seraphin. So they said, this thing is really going to happen. I said, yeah. I said, so how can we help? So they literally moved into my office for a week. So I said to Keats, man, nobody's playing any jazz music on the radio station. So Keats is calling up all the radio stations and says, are you happy with the sponsorship Cable Wireless is giving you guys with advertising? He said, yes. He said, well, you better start playing some jazz music. Right? The only person that played jazz in those days was Luther. Right? You'd have to go to the chart house, you know, and there were times I was there watching Luther. It was myself and the person who was cleaning up, right? Nick Ashworth, who was running it, was a big jazz enthusiast. Nowhere else you would get jazz. So I remember the first night, and honest to God, the only hope that I had was that they would play one beat. And if everything broke down after that, I would have been satisfied.
Wow.
Because we had been through so many trials and tribulation. In those days, you used to have to get foreign exchange control. We had not approved this in the budget. Couldn't get foreign exchange. Couldn't be paying the artist. Went to a guy called Bernard Lecorbinaire, who was the director of finance in those days. And he finally was able to make some arrangements. And all I could get was traveler's checks. So going to every bank and getting all the traveler's checks to be able to pay these artists, right? So that first night, and I remember the show was on, and the artist at the time, I'm trying to remember his name, I'll remember his name, and he stopped in the middle of his first song. He says, you know, I've been trying to figure out what's different about this place. And he goes, and it's finally hit me. This is the first time I've come somewhere in my life where all the brothers are in charge. And everybody went crazy, right?
Nice.
And the people who left that show that night were so enthusiastic that the next night we sold out. Then we went to Pigeon Island on the Saturday and the Sunday. And we had 400 people on Pigeon Island. Remember, everybody had like their big blankets and kids were running around.
Growing up, that was a vibe.
Yeah, it was definitely.
But there was nobody there, right?
Yes.
And that was with, I mean, we had Wynton Marsalis. And I remember Wynton calling and saying, look, he just got this gig with Lincoln, with Lincoln Theatre, which he's still now part of. And he said, I can't make it. So the producer, Paxton, came to me and said, look, Wynton can't make it. I said, Paxton, we've had so many things go wrong with this festival. There's just no way that I can take no for an answer. He said, well, the guy said no. So we had a lady who was in charge of our tourist board, Marie Green Blanchard was her name. I called her up and she goes, you know, I have a friend who is the chef for Bill Cosby. And I'm sure that he can get you the number, right? And I know that the chef knows who he is. And she called him, he got us the number, and Bill Cosby gave him the number, and I just picked up the phone, and no cell phones in those days, so call him at his home. Said, Mr. Marsalis. He goes, yes. So this is Alan Shastney. He goes, and who are you? I said, I'm the director of tourism for St. Lucia. He goes, oh, St. Lucia. He goes, I'm so sorry, we couldn't make it out, and this and that. I said, no, man. I'm calling you personally to tell you, no is not an option. He goes, what do you mean? I said, this is our first time doing this thing. I know that you're a big promoter of jazz. This is a big thing for our island. And I need you to come. So you have me over the table. Whatever you need, I will do. He goes, oh man, it's not about money. I said, Mr. Marsalis, I need you to come. Right? He goes, okay, well, let me call you back. So he calls me back and he says, look, I can come down on the Sunday, but I would have to play the same day. So I said, not a problem. You can come down and we'll helicopter you up and you can go and play. He goes, okay, man, we'll do this. We'll do this. So he needed a grand piano. There was only one grand piano on the island, which was at the Cultural Center. The Minister of Tourism was Lancico. And the very good friend of mine, Dr. Frederick, who was the PS of Education and charge of culture, said, there's no way that we can take this piano. It would be, what was the word he used? It would be, gosh, what was the word again he used? Heretic, that if we did this thing, right? So I got Luther's father involved to speak to Sir John and explain to him that there's no reason why the piano can't go there. So Sir John called up Dr. Frederick and said, look, make sure the piano goes there. Dr. Frank wasn't going to happen. So there was a guy called Mr. Help me. He's a very famous cultural person in our country. He died a couple of years ago. Dorville, is it?
Dorville?
I can see him so clearly. Anyway, he was in charge of the cultural center, right? And so
I think I know him.
I'm having a meeting with him, and he said, look, there's nobody here at lunch. I'm going, brother man, I got a bigger problem than worrying about your lunch break. He goes, there's nobody here for lunch, Alan. So my guy next to me goes, man, boss, telling us to come and take the piano at lunch.
Oh, wow.
So you know already.
Yeah, so I came back at lunchtime, and he was actually waiting for me, and he helped us take the piano, right? So we stole the piano, confession.
Oh, my goodness.
So we stole the piano to get it out to Pigeon Island. So then, when Winton arrives, right, and I bring him to the stage, and he looks at the stage, he goes, man, the stage is built on stones, man.
Wow.
Right? I go, yeah. He goes, I'm not going on that stage. I said, I'll hold the stage up for you, don't worry. I said, we had all kinds of people on the stage and everything else. Anyway, it was an incredible event, and the Jazz Festival by the third year became an international success. And I think because it was never anything at that level in the Caribbean, it got immediate credibility. And then the lady, Karen Joyner, turned out not to have money, so I called her bluff. And I said, look, if you can't put up a bond for the whole thing, then we need to take over the festival.
Okay.
And she couldn't come up with it, so we took it over. And I remember I had just learned to start to play golf. And I went to La Toc, and I was playing. And I'm there, and all of a sudden this guy goes, hey, Alan. Turn around, and it's a guy called Jeffrey Allard. So Jeffrey used to be my neighbor when I lived in Fiji. I had not seen him since I was like 5 years age. So here I am, 31 years of age, 20-something years later.
Wow.
So he goes, hey, you play golf? I said, yeah. I said, can I play with you? He said, sure. So I said, where are you now, Jeffrey? He goes, I'm in D.C. I said, wow. I said, what do you do? He goes, I'm a financial controller. I said, cool. I said, with whom? He says, I'm a financial controller for BET. I said, no way, BET. I said, well, BET is going to be doing an event here in St. Lucia. He goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, we have this lady, Karen Joyner, and she said we're going to have BET here. He goes, nah, I don't think so. I said, well, how can I say? He goes, I'm the CFO. So he says, look, when I get back home, I'll check it out. So he calls me up a week later. He goes, man, there's nothing on the books at BET to do the St. Lucia Jazz Festival.
What?
He says, so why don't you fly up? So I fly up to D.C., go and meet this gentleman called Bob Johnson, and he owned BET at the time. The office used to be on M Street next to Georgetown. So I go and meet Bob, and we hit it off really, really well. So he goes, you know what? We'll do this. And so that's how BET Jazz Festival ended up on BET, and it really was that exposure that really took
Jazz.
Because I
grew up
watching jazz,
on
jazz
BET.
and BET.
Yeah.
And what was great is, so I remember meeting Paxton after. I said, Paxton, you live in D.C., you lived in Chevy Chase. I said, you gotta. He goes, man, I don't want to be to follow up on this. I said, please. He goes, BET, man, they're like a nightmare. Sorry, Bob. And he did. He was a liaison for them. And after we did the first festival, it was like such an amazing success. And I remember going back to his office in D.C., myself and Paxton sitting on a chair, and said, look, Bob, you need to have some programming from the Caribbean. It can't just be this jazz festival. So he said, what do you guys have in mind? So he said, we have this idea of having this Caribbean show, playing musical videos from the Caribbean, and having like a really hot host. So that's how a show called Caribbean Rhythms was born.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Myself
Really?
and
And to see who
Paxton.
contributed to Caribbean.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
And so, right?
Yeah, man.
And then he came, so
Write that
Paxton,
down for me. That's
Pa-
okay.
Paxton,
That pitch.
Paxton was putting the whole thing together, and he wanted a hostess, and so he goes, look, I need to come and test people in St. Lucia. I said, fine. He did Jamaica, St. Lucia, and Trinidad, and Barbados. And he chose a girl from Jamaica, who now is his wife. Right?
Right?
Right? amazing growth. And Caribbean Rhythms was born. We continued with the Jazz Festival. And then, look, and that's why I understand, and I always try to make space. The success that we were having, we did a TV show called Let's Be the Best to try to change people's mindsets towards tourism. We did the Service Awards, so we did it like the Oscars. We completely revolutionized how tourism was marketed here, and that's when we came up with the tagline, St. Lucia, Simply Beautiful.
Okay.
Right? All came
Really?
from that era, right? What's her name? Your good friend.
My good friend.
Yeah, a couple of your good friends. Agnes Francis.
Okay.
Angela. Nathaniel Auger.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
We're all part of the crew, right? That we were putting all this together. I mean, you go to the St. Lucia Tourist Board at 12 o'clock at night, any day of the week, and there was people there.
Wow.
Because people just love their job, right? We did a thing where I'm always a big believer, unless people have been to the Promised Land, very difficult to describe them. So the mecca of tourism in our day was a country called Bermuda.
Okay.
Right? And I took 31 people to Bermuda.
To see.
Taxi drivers, customs officers, immigration officers, policemen, all the different segments, vendors, everybody.
To see.
And we would break up into groups of 4, and every day we would meet for like 2 hours to discuss what everybody had seen. Right? And I remember the funniest thing was that the customs and the immigration guy got held up in the States because they had not filled out their cards right. And everybody was like laughing.
Out of all people,
right? They thought I applied that, right?
Yeah.
So what that did is that once people had spent that kind of time and really shared in the vision, whenever I would have a problem, I would call up that person and say, hey, remember when we were in Bermuda and we did this? And he goes, yes. I said, I just need to get that done, brothers. He goes, leave that to me, right? So there was like a whole apostle of people out there that had, we call it, drank the Kool-Aid and really appreciated what we were going to do. And I started running afoul with Minister Lancico.
Okay.
And look, the minister's a minister,
True.
So I had a great amount of respect for that. And we had brought sandals here.
Okay.
So sandals was not in St. Lucia. We had the St. James Hotel was going to open as an Accor hotel. And last minute, Jazz Festival, all the artists supposed to be staying there, they didn't open. So I spent the whole night rebooking everybody with the staff. And then I was leaving. I said, I wonder why they're leaving. I called up the lawyers, Brenda Flosak. I said, Brenda, why are they leaving? And she explained to me. I said, do you guys have anybody in mind? She says, no. I'd met this guy, Butch Stewart, and I called him up that night. I mean, I remember now, it was the security guard at Montego Bay that answered the phone. And, no cell phones in those days. So he's looking through the telephone book to get me Butch's home number. Right? So I called Butch at his home and I explained to him what was going on. He said, yeah, man, I'll send somebody down. And he sent somebody down on the American Eagle the next day. It arrives, flight used to arrive at 11 o'clock at night. And I spoke to my friends at Wyndham. Both of them were interested. And eventually, Butch called me up. He said, man, I got some good news and some bad news. I said, what's that, Mr. Stewart? He said, good news is that we bought La Toc Hotel. The bad news is it's not going to work out with the Frenchman. Right? And Wyndham took over the Accor Hotel, and Mr. Stewart bought La Toc.
Okay.
So, I mean, this guy promoted St. Lucia. We were on billboards. We were doing shows in New York. So this was like, being on the fastest horse.
Yeah.
And it transformed St. Lucia. And then immediately after that, he bought Halcyon. So all of a sudden, when I started getting into this conflict with Lancico, my attitude was I was not going to fight him because I felt that it would have undermined a lot of the good that we did. And maybe now it was just a good time for me to leave. And I had a lot of confidence in the team that we had. And I got offered a job by a guy called Chris Blackwell. Chris, for those who don't know, was the founder of Island Records.
Okay.
And for those of you who know Island Records, is Bob Marley, U2, Melissa Etheridge, the Cranberries. I mean, very big.
Yeah.
And he had sold his company to Polygram, and he bought a whole bunch of properties in South Beach and in the Bahamas and in Jamaica.
Okay.
And from then I had this vision of village tourism.
Whoa.
Okay, so I was very upset. Or I shouldn't say upset. I disagreed very vehemently with Sir John on the development of the Causeway.
Okay.
I felt the Causeway should have one hotel, and the rest of it should be subdivided into smaller lots and creating opportunities for locals to participate.
Okay.
Because I felt that locals were being disadvantaged in that they weren't getting prime land. They were being asked to actually put hotels and smaller properties off the street, and it just wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
And I just felt in my bones in the future that people would be wanting a much more authentic. I loved small hotels, you know? So I think big hotels have a place in terms of helping economies of scale and creating awareness, but I just love small properties
hotel,
and the intimacy of small properties. So I went to work for Chris because he believed in that same vision.
Okay.
And in fact, I went there for a project called Aracabessa, which is just outside of Ocho Rios, where Golden Eye is, so where Ian Fleming wrote the James Bond movies.
Okay.
And so it was to develop a village tourism concept. And we had an amazing architect called Ann Hodges. And, you know, we opened up Strawberry Hill, which was up in, we opened up The Cave. We opened up a property called Pink Sands in Eleuthera. We had Compass Point, which had a recording studio in the Bahamas, in Nassau. We had the Marlin, which is a 12-room hotel with a recording studio in South Beach. And we had a whole bunch of properties. And I did that for about just over a year and a half. And I could just see Chris was genius,
Okay.
but was struggling with the transition to hotels.
Okay.
So hotels are very different than the record business because I can invest a whole bunch of money in promoting you if I believe that you have a good song,
Yeah.
right? And it didn't matter how much money I spent, because if that song became hot,
You
well,
get
I can
back-
sell 1 million CDs the following day. There was no limit on how many CDs you can sell.
The
But
hotel
when you
is
have a
different.
hotel, if you have 12 rooms, you can only sell 12 rooms.
True. True.
So the amount of money you
Yeah,
spend,
there's a lot of gamble.
well, you have to stay within what your budget's going to be.
Okay.
And he was just such a stickler for detail. It was just amazing to be and work with him. He is a genius. And he and a guy called Ian Schrager. Ian Schrager was the guy who started Studio 54 in New York, very famously. He and Ian Schrager and a gentleman who started the Amman Properties are really the persons who started boutique hotels.
Okay.
So it was really exciting time to work with him. And then a good friend of mine who I had met, a guy called Brian Jardin, who is Butch's son, but he was adopted by a different family
Okay.
in Guyana, and invited me to come to work for Air Jamaica. So I said, yeah, man, that sounds good. So I went to work for Air Jamaica.
That's a journey. That
Yeah.
is a
And-
journey.
That
I
is
started-
definitely a journey.
I started as director of sales for North America, and eventually within 2 years I was vice president of sales for the world, and then I became vice president of marketing and sales for Air Jamaica. And then we did, you know, amazing things. We did the Air Jamaica Jazz and Blues Festival, which was a much bigger version of the jazz festival here. We did Islands in the Park. I remember one night, you know, waking up in the middle of the night, writing down an idea. So the idea is, in the airline business, you want to get people to fly,
Yeah.
and particularly Caribbean people. And so the most important word is nostalgia. How do you get people to have nostalgia? So I came up with this idea that we would do this thing called Islands in the Park. So I don't know if you guys ever been to a place called Prospect Park in New York,
Yes, I have.
right? And we did Islands in the Park. So we brought all these bands from the Caribbean, all these soca and reggae bands.
So that's so the Liberty.
Yeah, that was
so
just like an
similar to
inception.
Liberty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But the Liberty is really is carnival.
Yes.
This was all genres. And so we did this free concert, and then we would, people would be there eating the food, listening to the music, and guess what, man?
Wow.
It was Father's Day weekend, right? So it would have been this weekend, and people just booked like crazy. And, Air Jamaica was about the moment you stepped on the plane, you were already home, right? Because of the colors and the fashion show and all the
Yes,
stuff that we
yes,
did.
yes, nice.
I mean, in the fight we had with American Airlines as a West Indian company, and what we did, it was just, again, revolutionary. And I mean, weekends, playing dominoes all over the States, particularly delving into the diaspora. And that's when I really learned how important the diaspora is. and what it could do. We're not even tapping into a tenth of what the potential of the diaspora can be. First generation, second generation, third generation. And all these people are looking to relate. But what happens is we need to raise our standards.
Definitely.
Right? To attract them back home. So did that for 9 years. And then married my wife, Raquel. I'd been going out with her for 10 years. And when she became pregnant with my first child, my daughter, and I said, okay, I can't give Mr. Stewart what he wants anymore. Because with Mr. Stewart, there's only one love, right? You have to love him.
Wow.
I don't mean in a bad way, but you know, when he calls you, you got to do this. And I respect that too much. And I knew that now that I had somebody else in my life and with my daughter coming, I would not be able to do that. But we had 9/11, so I couldn't leave the airline at that point. That was I was taking off from Washington, D.C. that day that we had the bombings. So you know the attack at the what's it called, the Pentagon, which is right across the street from where the airport, Ronald Reagan Airport was.
Okay.
Walking in the streets and people come in a bullhorn and say, hey, there's another plane coming, and everybody's like looking for cover. So that was a whole experience in itself. But I eventually left in 2003 and came home. Actually, I was going to go and live in Bermuda because my wife wanted to do trust law.
Okay.
And then my father called me up and said, look, I've just bought this little hotel called Candio Inn. Right? So you need to come and run this thing. Right? So I said, you know what? I want my kids to grow up with their family. I want to be in St. Lucia. I'm ready to be back full-time in St. Lucia. My wife says I never discussed it with her and I just got on the plane and went. I think I did discuss it with her and try to convince her.
No, you did not.
But I'm going to defer to her. And maybe her version is the more correct version. But we came home and, you know, got in. My daughter was born, built Coco Creole, fixed it up into Coco Creole, and then we built Coco Palm. And, you know, my father gave me a choice. He said, do you want to build another hotel here or do you want to build a hotel down by Shock? And again, village tourism. I thought that Rodney Bay could become Rodney Bay Village. So that's how that whole Rodney Bay Village concept started.
Like,
and then we
started
doing like concerts, you know, by where, what's the name of that place? It used to be Capone's. And I'm trying to remember what the name of the place is right now. It's right opposite the bank, the Bank of St. Lucia. Not bank, the
Bank of Scotia.
The Republican, opposite bank.
By Verve?
By Verve.
By Verve, yeah.
Wow.
That empty lot. We used to do concerts there all the time and close down the whole place and just really promote it as the village and trying to get the restaurants and all of us to work together and stuff like that, which was tough. And then 2006, I was a supporter of the Labour Party. And when I came home, I was, you know, I don't want to say good friends with Kenny, but I had a very good relationship with the Prime Minister. And I remember getting into a big dispute with him. You know, he graciously agreed to come and have dinner with me. And I remember saying to him, I said, you know, Chief, like you're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk with tourism. Right? And he says, what do you mean? I said, you know, all these things need to happen and they're not happening. I said, I came down here. You promised support, not from me as a hotel, but to fix up Rodney Bay. Sidewalks, better lights, the landscaping, the ordinances, because people were just playing loud music all over the place. I said, this thing has to be done properly. So he says to me, look, I'm fixing up the roads, I'm fixing up the hospital, I'm doing all these things, and these things are benefiting tourism. I said, yeah, no doubt. I said, but the litmus test is that if you decide to shut down all the hotels tomorrow in St. Lucia, which one of those projects do you stop? He goes, what do you mean? I said, are you going to stop the hospital? He goes, no. I said, are you going to stop fixing the roads?
No.
No. I said, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about specific things for tourism. Those are development things and they're important.
Yes, they
right?
are.
So anyway, apparently he did not take too kindly to our discussion and called my father and said some pretty horrible things. So I just basically said, look, where this government is going nowhere. And this is, you know, when everybody thought that they were going to win in 2006. And I remember the same Ernest Hilaire, when I went, the first political meeting I ever went to in my life, first political meeting was to Spider Montoot, which was at the, by the, what is it called? Darren Simon Stadium, in that big space there. So I remember my brother-in-law coming by my home that day. I was living up at Rodney Heights. See, I said, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to Spider's thing. So I said, cool, I'm going to come. So I went into my room and I got a yellow shirt. And I was walking out the house, and I remember my wife going, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go to this meeting." She goes, "Dressed like that?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You know, once you leave the house wearing that shirt, there's no turning back." I said, "I'm ready," right? She gave me a big hug and kiss, and I went out, and then the following day, Philip called me, and Ernest called me. He said, "What are you doing? I can't believe what they're thinking." I said, "Yeah." And Ernest said, "But he's like an 80-year-old guy. What are you doing?" I said, "Imagine that. I have more confidence in an 80-year-old guy than I have in you guys. You guys are just talking, man.
Eating.
Yeah, you're not developing this country." And you're going to win the next election, because I really genuinely thought they were going to win the election. I said, "But I just want you to know I don't support that." And so I'm not a hypocrite, right? And I remember walking around all day, make sure people saw me with my yellow shirt. And I did a lot of things to try to support their party behind the scenes. I don't want to say I was in the forefront, I was behind the scenes. And then after the election, I got a phone call from Sir John. He said, "Look, I'd like you to be my Minister of Tourism. Will you come on board?" I said, "Okay, how long do I have to think about this?" And he said, 3 hours. And I remember going to my wife, and my wife was like in shock. And I just opened up the hotel, and so I decided to do it, and I joined. And so I think pretty much everybody knows what happened to me between now and then. But I've had a very interesting life. Been able to travel a lot of different places, being involved in a lot of different things. One thing I keep saying to young people is that never be scared of hard work, particularly when you're young, because whatever you learn, nobody can take away from you.
You learn that already.
Yeah, man. It's yours.
That's true.
Right? Whatever experiences you have. So when you see people saying they're at work and they're being asked to do extra work, and the first thing they ask is, "Well, how much are you going to pay me?" and everything else. To me, you're in university until you're 35.
True.
Just work and try to learn as much and understand everything that you're doing. And this is your experiences. And what happens is that those experiences build confidence in you to, when your calling comes, and you have to do something, that you have the confidence to take control of your own destiny. So I'm very grateful that my mother in particular has always been a big believer in building my self-confidence. I've never been scared of making mistakes. Right? So as long as I don't die, I don't kill anybody else.
That's my attitude, As long as I don't die, I'll be fine.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Because the only thing that can stop you is death.
Remember, part of success is failing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you have to remember that. And some people, the good thing about bad days is there are good days coming.
Of course, definitely.
Because the thing about it, you have experienced good days.
Exactly.
So even though there are bad days, there's hope.
Exactly. And some people may wonder, why did we ask the Prime Minister to go down his life journey?
Yes.
And it's basically to give young persons an insight as to who our Prime Minister is as a person, and to help them understand that sometimes you may have tough journeys going up, but then it's all about how you decide to turn it around. And I think both Winston and I were a little taken aback, because we're all in a history class there.
Yes.
Because some of the things that we learned there tonight,
I'm amazed.
yes, I'm amazed as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm still a bit taken aback about the jazz festival and even village tourism and all of that. And we're going to go into that a little later on. But it's amazing to see that we have someone that maybe, like Winston said, the universe was telling you that you needed to be in politics, but you had not seen that aspect as yet. We will like to know, why did you get involved in politics, though, actually, for young persons still listening to your story.
Before you go there, let me say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just cannot watch my phone correctly, but you see the story the PM gave about himself there. We just get about 5,000 votes from the
Of course,
Party.
that's definitely
From the Labour Party to come
Yes,
to the United
yes,
Workers
yes,
Party.
yes.
So PM, for the whole letter, we can just keep on give us your story. That to me, that'll be okay. Can we just get some new voters
Of
there?
course,
Trust me,
definitely.
That was so amazing, Mama.
Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely.
And they say the man was brought up with a golden spoon.
He was not brought. You see, that's the thing. I have heard part of that story.
He could have been seeing that golden spoon, but he had to work
for
to
it.
get to the golden spoon.
Exactly.
And not poor, like today, he's still telling he's still a worker. Check why he's
He's
the
part of
United Workers Party. Yeah, bad Jamaica. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you a true story. I actually used to ride my horse to school.
What?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, really?
And you know where I went to? Marsha.
Masha?
Yeah.
Masha. Yes, Masha.
The Masha Primary School?
No. Miss Patterson's.
Oh.
But you know where Patterson Gap is? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's where I went to school. So when people tell me it's only today I go into Marsha, right?
You
It's
see?
how long ago I used to go to Marsha,
Yes, I saw that post on Facebook only today.
Yeah, but that's not true.
right?
Yeah.
And then I used to laugh because when I was the director of tourism, I believed in village tourism. And I used to bring all of the international media to Marsha to have dinner at a place called Naked Virgin. Okay? And I remember people saying, "Are you crazy? You're going to bring all these people," right? Because we were trying to promote the hotels to send people to a real cultural experience. And I kept on saying to everybody, if people don't feel like they're going to benefit from this thing, right, it's not
Then
going
wanna
to
support it,
succeed.
Yeah.
You
Right?
have to bring it to them.
You have to bring it, and you have to show them that what it is. I mean, and the media loved it. Okay? So I have to tell you, there's never been a time in my life I would be scared to go to Marsha.
And you see the thing.
And a great story now is, guess where I used to spend my summer vacations? Mount LeBron. Up by the old radar station. And I remember once, my parents left me, and they went down to the Kimitrai by the beach. You know, in the corner by the entrance by Coconut Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah? And I rode my horse. I didn't have a saddle, so in those days you used to ride with a sack. So a rope as the bridle, right? And a sack. So I'm going down, I get to the place, right? To Kimitrai. So boy, I get off the horse, time up my horse, right? And I get in the ocean. Forget my backside chafe, right? Because you can imagine from Labrie today, right? And when that salt water hit my backside, right? But I fly out of so boy, I see everybody in the beach, they're playing and everything, and I can't get inside that one. So I vex now, right? So I get back on the horse, decide to ride back up to Labrie. So I go in now, traveling, and as I'm passing by Il Pirata, and they have the corner there, right? Going down the thing, galloping, and used to be a lovely sound. The horse running on that concrete road, right? Used to hear it. I'm excited, right? Going down, boy. All of a sudden, the horse take the corner. I kept going straight.
They was getting vexed.
Huh? So boy, I get up, all greasy around me, get back on the horse, go in now, and where my father's place is, the mall. Right, and you would be going down. There'll be another sharp corner before you get back up to Labrie. Fell down again. Going up to Mont Lebron, fell down again. Right. So when I get up now back to the place, cut up, my backside hurting me. I smell. I want to go in the shower, but every time I touch the water,
Pain.
more than my everything in pain. Right.
Everything is
So I remember now. I said, okay. So I just went into the bed and I put the sheet over me. I fell asleep. When they wake up now, the whole sheet just stick. And I remember going into, they would send me in to get bread, and they wouldn't let me ride the horse into View Fort. So where the roundabout was, I would put the horse there, and then walk into town to go and get the bread and take my horse and ride it back. But I had such great experiences in St. Lucia. You know, and as I said to you, the people in St. Lucia from that age, tremendous generosity, great stories, everybody. And that's where, you know, for me, I see myself as Lucian, okay? I don't speak Creole, but again, there's an explanation for all of that. And a lot of us grew up in those days. I remember my father not wanting me to speak Creole. People say, oh, that's going to affect how you speak and everything else, and you shouldn't do that. I'd send you away to be educated, right? But I regret I don't, because I can say to you, I mean, I understand it, but I'll never genuinely understand it to get that kind of laughter when you hear a Creole story, right? So you can only imagine.
But you can say the boudet.
The boudet.
Yeah.
Not only I can say it, but I can eat it good.
Yeah.
But I believe it's not only you. Because I think in your
There are a lot of people.
It's not only in his generation, our generation as well.
They say, hey, don't speak Creole.
Yes.
At school, don't speak Creole. And Even people from Cashews, a lot of
Yeah.
people from Cashews, you know.
Well, I'm from Chosen, so you can't
Rural
point on
areas,
me.
they speak Creole, but
Yeah,
from
that's why I
Cashews,
love Before enough. Anything you can say in English, you can say it in Creole.
Yeah.
Anything
Yes,
whatsoever.
yes, yes.
I didn't mind that.
Because even if my girlfriend, she can't understand Creole, she can't.
Which one?
speak
Yes, now which
Creole,
one?
you know.
Yeah.
Which one of them? What kind of? What you telling them?
Why you
boy?
putting the man on the spot like that? you know?
Exactly.
Oh my lord, yeah, she can't understand
Just kidding, man. Just kidding. Winston.
Like, what? Oh my lord.
Yeah. So
So PM, just now you said you spent some time at Mon Libla. It's been a while that you've been there to see the condition of the road. And I believe that's a good tourist view. A lot of people don't know about it. You can stay there and you can watch straight in front of you. You're watching straight and you see the airport straight in front of you and you believe
Yeah,
it's
man.
so fair you're watching.
It's most beautiful.
Yeah, you might know about that.
And when there's like forest there and also plateau.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool at
But
night, you know.
Plateau also, that's a nice place. Bojis, I was told we had an airport
Let me
there.
tell you,
That's why you.
This
Yeah,
plateau
that's-
right now, the road, oh my lord, you see my car? I don't have to worry about suspension.
Oh,
just
a Plateau ni highway. Yeah. Big up easy, man. Big up easy.
The road marking and the road is perfect.
Oh.
Perfect road in Plateau.
Under the which administration? And the
United Roads Plateau.
all right. Yes. All right.
So, before we actually go into initiatives and projects, we'll take a short break into the slides and achievements that this administration, headed by the Honorable Alan Chasney, has accomplished in terms of highlighting youth
You need a
development.
lot. You need at least a whole year to get things they have done already.
Yeah, but we'll just take a short break to go into some. No, we're not going into all because definitely we don't have time tonight to go into
I don't
all.
think we have time, you know.
We don't have the
Yeah,
time to go
man.
into all. So let's take a short break, go into the slideshow, and then we'll go back in and chat with the Prime Minister, as I'm very sure our live is getting very interactive. Maybe we might take a few questions on the live, just maybe.
Yes.
All right, so let's go into that slideshow, and then we'll come right back in and have a short discussion.
Of you?
That's so
The government has put in additional money into the St. Lucia Development Bank to help small businesses get off the ground. I'm very excited about this new food park that we're opening up in Grosley, and the goal is to replicate that all throughout the island. What we're doing on Sandy Beach in terms of subdividing the land, what we've done in terms of Lafague and also in Beauchamp and in Forestier and in Choc, all of these places, and putting housing developments in place, where you have now smaller contractors now coming up because we've offered incentives. Any contractor that can get the job to do 5 homes, we allow the building material to come in duty free. And he also gets those incentives. So the bank benefits because the bank is lending money on our higher value place because it's duty free. The homeowner is benefiting because he's getting a much more expensive house cheaper. And the contractor is benefiting because now they have 4 contracts.
You know what I like about Spider? When it comes to community development, he has honored the elderly and children, also has been delivering monthly hampers to the sick and vulnerable, and also every Wednesday he has the soup kitchen who delivers food to the less fortunate. That's the best representation, a minister that does what he says he will do.
Na 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 na, yeah. Let's keep working. Let's keep moving. Let's keep working.
The government has put in additional money into the St. Lucia Development Bank to help small businesses get off the ground. I'm very excited about this new food park that we're opening up in Gros-Islet, and the goal is to replicate that all throughout the island. What we're doing on Sandy Beach in terms of subdividing the land, what we've done in terms of La Fague and also in Beauchamp and in Forestier and in Choc, all of these places, and putting housing developments in place. Where you have now smaller contractors now coming up, because we've offered incentives. Any contractor that can get the job to do 5 homes, we allow the building material to come in duty free. And he also gets those incentives. So the bank benefits because the bank is lending money on our higher value place because it's duty free. The homeowner is benefiting because he's getting a much more expensive house cheaper. And the contractor is benefiting because now they have 4 contracts.
For the future, restoring the pride. It's yours and it's mine. Let's do this together. Preserve for the future. Yeah, sweet Beatles, nothing like you. So iconic on this beautiful island. Yeah, we adore you, so we will protect you. So your beauty can be seen by all eyes.
Bienvenue à Sky FM 93.1 et puis Dr. Sigwe lundi pour vendredi. Ça c'est 4h30 pour 8h au soir. Côté Dr. Sigwe ka encore nous. Côté nous ka discuter qui ça qui ka fait en pays. Nous aussi à sur Facebook et puis channel 115. Ça c'est DVD TV. Join-moi lundi pour vendredi à sur Sky FM 93.1 et puis Dr. Sigwe encore nous.
My MP said that we would have a new wellness center. Here we are. It's almost finished.
My community said we needed a new wing to our secondary school. And my MP said yes.
My sister said she needed help to find a job, so my MP created a job fair.
Our athlete said we needed better sporting facilities.
A new early childhood development center.
My neighbors said.
My sister said.
The children said.
Community said.
Roads and a new park. And my MP said.
Yes.
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 Of course.
Nous tous, c'est une famille en micro de Nord. Et nous continuons pour faire progrès avec Antigel.
On l'a fait bail.
And I'm a student at the Monaco Passias Combined School. I'm in grade 6 and my teacher is Miss Stanislas. My favorite subject would be math. I don't normally like it, but my teacher makes it finds a way to make it fun. I also love the positive quote she put up all over the walls. It reminds me to keep going. Also, the new wing is very impressive. The balcony is very large. So at break time, I can eat my snack and, go for a nice little walk. I also like the size of the classroom, so I'm not sticking on anybody because, 6 feet apart. Before, it was a rocky ride coming to school when I normally take the bus. But now, the drivers don't have any complaints now that the district rep fixed it. Before, it was like a rocky, stony road. A dirt road, but now that they fixed it with some concrete and nice tools, it's a smooth ride. I may even fall asleep. Thank you, Dr. Rigobert.
Having been born and raised in Grizzly, I think Spider knows exactly what his constituents need. It's shown in his demeanor. He works diligently with the constituents. I know that he knows what we need, and he has proven that by the work that he has done. His representation is definitely representation that we can trust, and as we know, there are certain things that he has promised and he has delivered in terms of healthcare, youth development, youth empowerment. Personal example for me as a Corinth resident, the Corinth Road. You would realize that road was really filled with potholes and it was a roller coaster drive. Now I get to save money because I have a carpet to drive on and I don't have to spend money in parts. So I want to thank the minister personally for, repairing the Corinth Road.
Let's keep working. Let's keep moving.
All right. Now we're back into the program. Let me tell you, youth empowerment. It was supposed to have been from 8 until 10. Okay, we started a little late. We had technical difficulties. But with our Prime Minister in studio, we did learn his backstory. We learned who he is as a person. And just going through the live and watching the comments, the young persons were basically amazed at his backstory. And we're now going into his term in administration. And looking back from 2016, first order of business, amendment of the Crown Proceedings Act. Now, corruption is what is labeled on the United Workers' Party administration. So if my understanding is correct, the Crown Proceedings Act is basically if any politician or any person within government does anything that is labeled as corruption, they can be taken to task with proper investigation and they can be arrested and imprisonment. So then my question now is, if that is the case, why would we have amended that act?
So the act was amended because it came out of the Rochamel or the Ramshahoyd report.
Oh boy.
Okay. And so it was actually one of the recommendations in the Ramshahoyd report. And what happened in that is that the time expired to hold the then administration accountable for some of the things.
Okay.
So the report basically accused or charged, if you want to, the then government with maladministration.
Okay.
And indicated that because the time limitations, that they could not hold the government accountable for some of its misdoings.
Okay.
So when we came in, we took up the recommendation, which was the first day in Parliament, and changed it. So it meant that any politician or any senior government official that did something that warranted an investigation and it was found guilty, time would not lapse.
Okay.
Okay? So it really opens up the government to be accountable.
Okay, so let's stick a pin right there. Isn't that the same act that the Labour Party opposed in the House of Parliament?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just clearing the air.
Well, actually, I think they had walked out then.
Yes, they definitely did walk out.
I can't remember what was. Oh, they walked out because of the Deputy Speaker of the House.
Yes.
Situation. It's funny because you remember at all my meetings that we went to, the song that I came out to was what? Remember?
No, I can't remember.
You can't remember? A Jimmy Cliff song.
This now.
You're trying to remember the song.
I remember
Actions.
Actions be glad in the woods. Yes, that's it. That's definitely it.
Yes.
Right? And so it matters, So when people, the easiest thing is politicians all like to accuse each other of being corrupt.
Yes.
And that's, as if that's going to cause anything. And even when I hear the current political leader making a promise to the people of St. Lucia that he's going to deal with corruption and he's going to be dealing with transparency. And I keep saying to him, you don't need to wait to be Prime Minister
to do so.
To start.
Start within your
start with your own
party.
administration.
Yes.
So you have your Ernest Hilaire, who has admitted finally. So in an interview or a press conference he did, what did he say? He was advised to put the car into the name of the St. Lucia High Commission. So in essence, what he was advised to put the name in of the government of St. Lucia. So who advised you? And once you put it into the name of the High Commissioner or to the government of St. Lucia, how did you get it out?
Correct.
Because our Financial Act only gives that authority to one person, which is the Director of Finance. And the Director of Finance is guided that if they are going to what we call dispose of a state asset, if it's less than $10,000 of value, then the director could make that discretionary decision.
Okay.
But if it's more than 10,000, it has to go to auction. So after he put the car in the name of the High Commission, how did he get out? And so his quandary at this point is that all this time that people have been asking him to produce the documents to show how he got it out, but he's accusing everybody of political victimization. But this was back in 2015. So that is what we call fraud.
Correct.
Now, it's in court. At the last court session, he was again asked to produce the documents. He said he cannot produce the documents.
But why?
Because there's no way that he could have gotten the car deregistered from the government. And the fact is, the reason is because he never told the government that he did that. So he used his position as the High Commission, didn't tell anybody, wrote up all the documents, to do what? Why would he do that? Because he wanted the car to be duty-free in the UK. So to save £3,200, he wrote to the British government to say that the car belongs to the state, to the government. The email is there, where the UK government writes back and says, further to our conversation today, we understand that you made a mistake and the car does not belong to Tafal Williams, because he tried to put it in Tafal Williams' name in order to avoid having to pay the taxes. And then when Tafal was rejected because he already had the car, which also Ernest admits to in his press conference, so he goes and puts it in the name of the High Commission. The state didn't know. But now that the state has found out, now he's in a quandary, because the state is saying, okay, who gave you permission? And if nobody gave you permission, in essence what you have done is you have gifted the car to the state. Philip Pierre remains
quiet,
silent.
Yeah.
Not a word, not a word, not a word. Then you have a situation where we're in Parliament and Sean Edwards says that there was a minister's account. So we're all looking at each other.
Oh,
what? Minister's account?
Oh, boy.
We then go and find the files where Sean wrote to the NLA. So the NLA is the National Lotteries Association, which is an independent body. Has its own board and everything else from a legal perspective. He writes to the NLA and says to the NLA, I want you to set aside 1/3 of your money into a separate account in which he, Sean, will identify which projects to fund. And he will identify who the persons are. So the fact is that NLA was delinquent in its own governance responsibilities. And that he, Sean, should know better. And how much money was spent? In the last 7 months leading up to the election, he directed almost $7 million in expenditure. Okay? The Marigold changing room, $650,000. Okay? And a project that was supposed to clear and put up a fence, there's no fence. So 70% of the projects were never completed. 30% of the projects never started, but everybody was paid. All right? The current leader of the party says?
Nothing.
Not a word. But he's believing in good governance and transparency. Then you have the situation now going on with Joachim Henry. I get it. Right? So if Joachim Henry genuinely felt that Guy Joseph defamed him, you take him to court. So I have believed that Richard Frederick has defamed me. I have 3 court cases with Richard. It's since 2018. And it's a brutal process to go through. But I'm in court because I feel I have my rights. That's where I go to deal with that. If he felt that Guy Joseph
slandered his name?
Well, no, if he slandered his name, you take him to court. But if he feels that Guy Joseph was being insensitive about his son's death, then to me, 2 brothers in the same
church,
same
religion,
go to the elders and get it resolved. But no, takes matters in those hands. And anybody who's been to the church in Forester, you have to want to go there. It's not a place that you just happen to be passing by, right? So you go there, you do all your nonsense, which is on tape, so I don't have to say what took place. But I know that my brother Guy was shaken, because Guy kept on saying he believes there was an intervention by the Lord, because he doesn't understand how the man could be standing in such a small church. Guy was on the podium. And Joachim says, where is he? Where is he? So in his mind, honestly, he genuinely believes that the Lord blinded him and protected him from that. But we have to ask a more important question. The situation with the gun. How does the gun, who made the decision for him to give up the gun? When was the decision? And who is the person that took it from Joachim and brought it to Philip Pierre? And then Philip Pierre to give it to Claudius Francis. For Claudius Francis to give it to the police. And all you can say as an answer to all of that is, if in fact we did anything wrong,
we're sorry.
We're sorry. Really?
But then you see that's a key word there, we.
Correct. So all I'm saying to you is, so here you have a situation in clearly which a person, in my humble opinion, has acted irresponsibly. Because who is he? He in my mind, he attacked Guy. In my mind, he attacked the people who were physically in the church. But more importantly, and that's the part that everybody seems to be missing here, is church is supposed to be sacred. And the fact is that we have a history in this country of where a church had been desecrated, and in fact people had been attacked.
Several times people lose their life.
And so knowing that, how is it that more serious action has not been taken, but that the leader of the opposition would stand in defense of that behavior and offer such a weak apology? Nobody from the Labour Party has answered the question, why did the then Prime Minister sign the contract and the lease with Grindberg? Why? How did all this money go away from Rochamel? And I hear them now want to compare a Peugeot letter to
Rochamel and Grindberg.
Well, and Robert Ainsworth. What's the difference between the Peugeot letter and the letter from Robert Ainsworth? The Ministry of Economic Development solicits money all the time. The World Bank, the IMF, for projects. But once it identifies the money, it is the Ministry of Finance that approves the details. It is the implementing agency that approves the project.
So there was nothing wrong with the signing of the letter?
No, because that's their job.
Okay.
If you have the lights and you have the St. Jude's Hospital and there are persons who are willing to lend money, his job is to say, can you send me an offer?
Okay.
Once he sends the offer then goes to the Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
Let us compare that now to the Robert Ainsworth letter, where you have a letter that was signed by whom? By the Prime Minister. And the beginning of the letter says, I'm pleased to let you know that Cabinet met and approved the following things. So that's the highest authority. Approved that if you purchase 3,000 acres of land, that we're going to allow you to mine it. So you didn't learn your lesson from Grindberg. So you're going to let somebody buy 3,000 acres of land, and whatever they find under the land is theirs. You approve CIP, although you have no authority to approve CIP, because it's for the CIP board to approve.
Oh.
You approve casino licenses. You don't have the authority because you have a gaming authority that's supposed to do that. So I'm just saying to solutions, there's a difference between saying you're going to go and do something and then showing the actions you supported. In my case, when I took over as leader of the party, there are documents called WikiLeaks. Are you familiar with WikiLeaks?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Right? So WikiLeaks was this guy, Siraj, or whatever his name was, that was able to extract documents, secret documents, from the US government. And those documents, in the case of St. Lucia, revealed what? That there was a character in our country called Richard Frederick. And that the WikiLeaks said that this guy was heavily involved in drugs and arms and all kinds of notorious stuff. Right? And explains the story of how he lost his visa. So when I came in as political leader, a simple conversation with Richard. In order for you to continue to be in the forefront of the party, you need to give us a reasonable explanation as to how you lost your visa. Not a complicated thing. But Richard believed that I don't have the right to do that. Right? Who is Alan Chastney to make that demand on me? I said, Richard, if you cannot explain, then you need to be a backbencher. Okay? And there were a couple of other people in my party that I had similar kinds of conversations with. And I was prepared to lose the election on that principle. Yeah? Because from the time that I did that, Richard has been attacking me. Now, nobody can say that I've ever heard me say anything, any animosities or anything derogatory about Richard. Right? I take my blows. But that's the penalty I pay for making that decision.
Correct.
There's no other reason why Richard's doing that. Richard's not applying all of this energy because he loves people. We know that. How do I know that? Because he was a minister of government. He was the minister of housing. Where are the houses? Where are the houses? Show me the things that I can are tangible that you fought for. It's not for me now to get into that history of Richard, but I can say that I stood up on principle.
And that is one of the reasons why you pushed the amendment of the bill.
Yes.
Okay.
And you have now where the Labour Party, what's the dance with Richard? I don't understand what it is.
No comment.
Okay? So is it a zouk dance? Is it a reggae dance? What is it?
I like zouk, so you cannot compare it to zouk.
Well, I don't think a zouk could be too close. So on one hand, you have a man who's out there. There's an old saying in politics. It's the oldest saying. And I can say to everybody out there, when you don't understand something, just apply this statement to it. My enemy's enemy is my best friend. That is in politics one of the greatest motivations. Okay? So Kenny doesn't like me, Labour Party doesn't like me, and now Richard finds himself not liking me, and now they share a bed. Now, are they going to consummate the deal?
Okay.
Or is it going to continue to just be an affair? And what, they really, that people in St. Lucia can't see for themselves what's going on? They think that they're fooling somebody, right? But yet you're going to stand on a podium and say that you believe in transparency, you believe in accountability. Right. And that's why I'm saying to you that as a political leader, the moment you take over, you must atone for whatever sins you have. You must show people that you understood that you did something wrong or something was done wrong, and you must now show and convince the people that you're going to change it.
Well, I remember that's our journey when we were doing all these late night meetings and ensuring that we explain to persons what leadership is and exactly what you stood for and all of that. So you stood for it even before you were the political leader.
Right. And when Richard is there, you know this story. Richard is there saying that he left the party Really? He took the party to court to prevent the party from kicking him out.
Yeah, disciplinary action committee and all.
In fact, we had a convention at Grosley that almost didn't happen because we were waiting for the court's decision. Right? So, this is not about Richard. This is about Philip. What you going to do? It's just saying that you believe in transparency and accountability doesn't cut it. So this party came in first. The first action was to hold its own self accountable, and said whatever legal rights that we have, we forego those, and that if by chance there's something that we've done wrong, time
can help accountable.
Right? We can always be held accountable.
And I'm happy you guys did that.
And that in terms of who is in the party, how is in the party, and the standards and the values that we expect for you as a representative of this party, stand up. And I can tell you, and all my candidates know that, anybody that steps out of line in any way, right, need to understand that there's a much bigger journey than we have than any one person.
Sure.
No one person is bigger than the party. Yeah? And that also, the party is not just the persons who are elected, but all members of our party.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that people cannot make mistakes. Yes, you can. And how you atone for those mistakes, and whether people believe that you actually regret, and that you've actually understood, and people can believe, that's what matters.
True.
You have to be humble, you have to be genuine, and you must recognize that sometimes if you're part of a family and you do something wrong, it's not just about you, it's about the rest of us.
You affect everyone.
Right? Yes, I remember when Alan became political leader, we had the first youth retreat, and he said to us, you young persons need to understand that what you do and what you say and how you do it basically decides your future. And he said to us, you can be worth $1 million, but in what you do, how you act, and what you say can determine your self-worth.
That's true.
And a lot of us were looking at each other like puzzled, like, huh? But then later on, we understood what he was saying. So basically, it goes back into the first point to the first question that we just asked him.
Yeah, and you know, there's a speech I gave. I don't know if you were there for the convention in at the complex, the cultural complex. And I talked about the word faith. Right. So faith is the ability to believe in something you can't see.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and the point is that part of faith is doubt. So a Christian who understands faith believes what? That the Lord exists.
Yes.
But on times find themselves doubting.
Yes.
What happens if the Lord
oftentimes
doesn't exist? Okay? An atheist doesn't believe in the Lord.
Psychological.
Yes.
Right? But finds themselves sometimes doubting and saying, but Gasson, what happens if there is a Lord?
Yes.
What will you do? What are you going to do? So doubt is part of what you're allowed to question anything. But when you doubt and you can't answer and you lose faith, you become an unbeliever.
That's well.
And I said to all the people in my party, she was there. One of the values of our party was the word called loyalty.
Yeah, he stressed on that word. He stressed on that word.
I said, loyalty? I don't want no loyalty. Because there's a word that comes followed called blind loyalty.
Yes.
Okay?
And I think you explained the difference.
And I said, we changed the word to mutual respect. I must respect you, but you must also respect me.
And discipline.
And if we respect each other, our relationship will never divide. Because I won't lie to you. We're going to be truthful to each other. We trust each other. Okay? But loyalty? And means if you're not going to have loyalty, it means you must have doubt.
Yes, and if someone is loyal to you, most times they won't question you.
They're not going to have doubt.
Yes.
But then that's the thing I like about him as a political leader and as the Prime Minister. he has never made us young persons within the party or anybody as a member of the party to feel that you cannot question him. He's always open to your ideas, your contributions, and sometimes he may have made a decision already, but then your contribution is so valuable, he'll say, okay, let's reconsider, let's sit at the table and collectively come to a decision.
And Latoya knows this because we've been through it so many times, because people will come to me and bring up a different idea, and I challenge them. But they think in me challenging them is I'm not changing my mind. No, I'm pressuring them and pushing them to be clear in what they're thinking. And more often, how you think is what we call assumptions.
Yes.
What are the assumptions that brought you to that conclusion?
But you need to justify now.
Right. So a lot of people say I'm very long-winded. But I'm long-winded many times because I want to explain what are the assumptions. And so if somebody comes to me and said, look, I listened to your speech and you made an assumption here and I think that assumption is wrong. And if you're right, I'll change. I know what I am focused on? The truth. But there's sometimes that we will use wrong information genuinely.
Yeah.
And we make a mistake. Right? And to err is human.
Yeah.
Not a computer. But it's what in your heart. Are you committed to the good thing? And that's what I keep on saying to us in St. Lucia. That's why I get upset at the word better. Better is a process. But it's not the ultimate destination. So the United Workers' Party in the last 5 years have made a lot of things better.
And I'm going to highlight some of that when you're done with your contribution there.
Yes.
But it's not where we want to be. But it's a part of the journey. In order to get to world class, you have to become better.
Yep.
And the question is are we getting better fast enough? Okay? Those are the things that we have to ask. But I keep on saying to her, I'm always going to argue with people if you don't want to be the best.
Yes.
So if solutions don't want to be the best, then send me home. Honestly. Because I want to be the best. I want the country to be the best. And I want the best for everyone in this country.
So with that being said, we'll move to our next question. I think we should, being the best, we have to stay focused on our vision. And with the next question, tell us a little bit more about the digital economy.
And your views towards
and your views and your vision.
So there's a term that people use that I don't think they really understand what the term is. And it's called smart city. A smart city actually has more to do with sustainability.
Yes.
So it's being green, it's traffic management, it's the environment. To resist hurricanes, to low emissions, okay? Digital economy is a very different thing. So digital economy is the fastest growing sector in the world. And COVID, believe it or not, has actually accelerated the opportunity for the digital economy.
Yeah, because I think we got figures before COVID, right? That it was supposed to have been in by 2025, the 6 million, about 6 million jobs, digital economy-wise. And that's supposed to have tripled now.
Exploded.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
But here's the most important thing. There's a country in the world called Estonia. I would really ask the young viewers to go online and research Estonia.
Okay.
So Estonia used to be part of the Eastern Bloc after World War II. But value-wise, they were not a socialist or communist country ever.
Okay.
They were much more like Sweden and Norway.
Okay.
And they really struggled. And so when the USSR collapsed and they got their freedom, one of the first things they did was to say, how do we make sure we can defend our borders against Russia?
Okay.
Okay? And so what they figured out was, if they could create a digital economy and country in a cloud, way before all of us were talking about this thing, if they were invaded and people from Estonia were living in parts of the world, they would still have a country. They could still vote, they could still have elections, they could still collect taxes, because people could be living anywhere, physically.
Remotely.
And so this country became the first digital economy.
Nice. I'll have to do
Your taxes are automatically calculated for you, and you get a little email and says, here's what your taxes are. If you agree, they just take the money from your account.
That would be great.
Right?
Yeah.
That would be great.
The welfare system, so if somebody loses their job, automatically the system knows you've lost your job, it automatically sends you the benefits. If you're a single parent, okay, and you're unemployed, you automatically get your benefits. All right? And the biggest thing for them was about security, but more importantly than security was about your rights. So from a government perspective, they were allowed to use certain information if it was from a security perspective. But if they wanted to use your information from a statistical perspective, they have to seek your permission. So the government would send you an email, we're doing a survey, we would like to use your records, not to to reveal who you are, but from a statistical. So they recognized the rights of individual people. But the point is that the people in Estonia feared Russia more than they were concerned about using some of their rights. So there was a motivation to become a digital economy. So COVID now has, for the first time now, created a global economy that is borderless.
I think that's the next close sector to tourism right now.
It's going to be bigger.
Okay, great.
And why is it going to be bigger? Because now Amazon,
eBay,
Walmart have all
Alibaba.
agreed that they're never going to go back to have all of their people working in the office. So it means that they're no longer tied geographically to a city or to a country.
That's right.
And so let's take Ojo Labs. Ojo Labs found out that during COVID that giving the laptops to the kids to go home, right? And continue to working from home and bringing them back to the office every now and then for retraining, that the productivity levels went up.
Let me tell you. I know a lot of young people who are working at Ojo Labs and they're working from home. And they're at home very relaxed, happy, chill, and they do tremendously well.
Well, they're measuring the productivity. Their productivity has gone through the roof.
Yes.
Okay? So now, how are we going to tap into that opportunity? So the next big phase is the government. So the same way that when I was working for ESIPS, Eastern Caribbean Investment Promotion Services, trying to get people to come here to do sewing, right? We were creating jobs. And the government would build the factory cells. So even with Ojo and ITEL, the government built the factory cells, right? Then now the government is saying we want to help small businesses. So Hummingbird Beach, what's that? Small businesses on a prime piece of land.
Yes.
What we just did at T-Village in Gros Lane, what we tend to roll out are what? Small little lots with all the supporting facilities. You can plug in your electricity, your water, you pay a little rent. There's washrooms there, there's car park and everything else, and we're driving people like to a mall, right? So it's a little shopping mall, and you have all your little businesses. The Castries Market, redoing the whole thing to now create small businesses.
I remember people said you were crazy about this Castries Market, and then watch this. It's like first phase.
Now, what's the next big thing? The next big thing is to translate these new borderless jobs, create now a factory shell that's small offices. So imagine walking in like you were at ITEL BPO or at Ojo, and you all have your own little cubicles. There's a game room, there's a little restaurant, there's a gym, there's a place for your kids, all right? And what are these cubicles? Each individual person is now working for another company overseas. And the advantage you have is when your company needs you to have a conference, you can go into a room in which the whole thing is set up for you to be able to do your conference.
Vision.
If you need to have a board, so there's a couple of you working it together, you can all now be collected. You need a printer to print things out, okay? So the company is sending you documents for you to sign. You have a notary there, its person signs it, and you get it back out, all right? In your own community.
So you don't have to leave.
That's a vision.
I've been to Martinique on countless occasions, and every small community feels like a town.
Yes.
Correct.
Every small community, they have stores like Mega J and Massive Mega. Every small community in Martinique has that.
But actually, to just to stick up in there, Alan knows that as well. The blueprint that Sir John had for St. Lucia, it was actually much bigger than Martinique, and we shared that large discussions about this, and basically that's where he's going now.
Yes, now a great friend of mine, Telson Ferdinand, said to me yesterday, my brother, after this election and we get close to the next election, nobody will not have to lose the district to go and work anywhere. They'll have every single thing they want in the district. And Amanda was a strong supporter of the Labour Party that's joined the Flambeau Party, who was saying that.
And then you
kudos.
And then you in the woods for yourself.
I mean, I look at Choiseul.
Yes.
I mean, let me tell you something. Bradley.
Oh yes,
amazing.
yes.
Bradley.
You had those buildings that laid vacant there for how long?
Ages.
Okay? And he convinced Brian Dyer to come in, right? Fix up the places. Bank. Domino's. Okay?
Yes.
Grocery store.
Yeah.
And to your point, same thing going to happen in my constituency in Deriso by the Angers Gap. So one side of the shopping area and another place
I'm
will
going
be
back to
the
PM without continuing shutter, head at la ni jale bakivle, vote chasne, parce que ye we pogwe, vini gade manière de riso développer, ça n'attend tout pas tout moins passer les moins coûter, nous ka voter, nous ka voter chasne. That's because of development in Mid South. Ah ouais.
But again now, right? So you're talking about the people. Let's look at the people of Choiseul for a moment. So now they have a grocery store, they have a little bank.
Yes.
Right? The Lafag development with the playing field.
Yes.
The new
PM. I'm one of them that working on the playing field, making it shine. So under the Sports St. Lucia thing, the field is amazing. By the next 2 to 3 weeks, trust me, everything will be on par.
Then you're then talking about the community centers that he's doing, the new roads that are going in. You're talking about the PI bridge that's now going to be fixed up.
Fields.
So what's happening is all of a sudden people are realizing that they can improve the quality of their life. Now, what is important to Choiseul, what's important to Labrie, what's important to the two Mikus, and what's important to his two constituencies
may not be important to the
No. We need an economic driver. So in the old days, Choiseul, Labrie, and the two Mikus were the farmers and Vieux Fort North. But everybody would go to Vieux Fort South to spend their money.
Yes.
So we were generating the economic activity because of of what's happened to agriculture, which is still important, but it can't generate the kind of money anymore to the extent it was before. You now need to replace it with something.
Yes.
So what I don't understand is how a man came in 1997, Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Minister of Economic Development. You're sitting in the greatest potential of St. Lucia. Could not see the vision of putting a cruise ship terminal in the Vieux Fort. All the taxi drivers, that the only thing they can depend upon was what?
The airport.
An airport run up north. How many years? That you're living in a town, you're not seeing anything moving in the town. If you bring a cruise ship, what happens? All of a sudden, tours between Vieux Fort and Soufrière, and between Vieux Fort and Dennery. So for instance, one of the tours that I want to do, which I'm excited about, is where people will be able to drive up to Soufrière, go up to a place called Mini. And one of my favorite places is a place called Dewash, okay, which is at the bottom of the Mount Jimmy Hill.
Yes.
And then take a zip line there to go now to a place called Fokati, to Kati, in my constituency, which is a whole bird watch. So you zip line down there. So the new road now we fixed up on the Calypso Road. Drive now back through Deriso, or drive back through the T. Rocher area. There's some waterfalls and everything we want to do. We have some of the greatest restaurants in the area. And then people then drive back out and go back to Vieux Fort to catch their ship.
Yep.
Okay? But meanwhile, how many tours and things that I see in Choiseul, in Labrie, okay, in the Mikus, that people can go to. So in addition to the cruise ships, now you're generating some new hotels. And what is that creating? That's creating economic activity. So I want to I want to say one thing. There's an old saying in life that says if you cannot measure something, you can never become the best. So let's take a simple thing, running the 100 meters. If I want to beat Usain Bolt, there are really 3 parts to a 100-meter race. The start, which is from the time you get up 20 meters, 20 meters to 80 meters, and then 80 meters to 100. And what you do and how you train for each one of those, and you can time yourself. So you know if Usain Bolt's start is this, and you know what his stride is between the 20 meters to 80 meters, right? You better have a great start. You're going to have to hold your own till the 80 meters, and you better build your stamina to keep your speed to have a chance.
Yes.
Okay? It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. But you have to be able to measure it. So we keep talking about the potential for St. Lucia, but we have nothing to measure it on. So what I say to people in St. Lucia is that the limitation for our potential is the size of our country, the 240 square miles.
Yes.
Okay? So it is the economic activity per square mile, the output per square mile, that tells you if you're achieving your potential. So let's take a country. And people never like to compare themselves to the greatest. So Singapore, Singapore is the same physical size as St. Lucia.
Yes.
240 square miles. So if you take, and people can go and check these numbers. You take the GDP of Singapore and you divide it by the 240 square miles, it comes out to $1.5 billion. So Singapore generates more economic activity in 1.5 square miles than the whole of St. Lucia. Okay? Aruba, 70 square miles, 110 people, generates $30 million per square mile. Remember I just said to you, Singapore produces 1.5 billion.
Yes.
So Aruba, it's $39 million a square mile. Barbados is $30 million a square mile. Bahamas, Nassau, is $100 million per square mile. You know what St. Lucia is? $9 million per square mile. And this is where the conflict in policy comes in. And it's very easy always to try to suggest that a party is neglecting a particular sector or is not doing enough to help certain people. And when I used the statement, the country was broke because it couldn't help the more vulnerable persons in our society. Chief, how is it that we go to sleep at night thinking that paying an elderly person $115 a month is enough?
It makes no sense.
That's true.
It's not enough.
My grandfather was getting that.
Okay.
That's only, especially for the Pampers or
Yes, sir.
it's not
there are
enough.
some people that are trying to live on it.
And they're trying to live on it.
Yes.
And are having to, they only live by the grace of God, and the grace of God is through their neighbors. Okay? How is it that spending $1.5 million a year to maintain the schools, so there's 133 schools, so it's 8,000 EC dollars per year to maintain a school. How can that ever be enough?
It's not enough because there are houses, I see houses for $1 million and it's not that big.
How can you spend $1.5 million or $2 million a year on maintaining roads?
We never have good road.
Okay. How do you pay a police officer to work and he doesn't even get life insurance? Or you don't give him the equipment that he needs to go out?
Yeah.
Or you have a court system that's backed up.
And I could tell you now the police has equipment.
Yeah, they definitely do.
We're getting there, right? But the point is, when I said we're broke, is because everywhere you looked, we weren't spending enough money. But meanwhile, the country was financially broke. So the amount of expenses we had every year were far exceeding
what we were making,
what we were earning, and what we were spending was not enough. Only 2,000 people were getting the $115 a month. You think there was only 2,000 people who need vulnerability?
No, a lot more.
Her pet project, because she's way too passionate. Not too passionate, but she is. The social workers.
Yes.
How many social workers do we have?
Not enough.
Not enough.
Okay.
Definitely
13.
not enough.
13?
Yes,
13.
For the entire St. Lucia?
Yes, sir. The average workload.
Ask him. I call him all the time.
The average workload is what? 200 cases?
About 300.
Okay.
And
how does one person?
And we have 17 constituencies.
The social workers need help. Right? And they don't get enough driving allowance. They don't get enough training. Right? And these persons are going out. Honestly, I hear people want to complain about the civil servants, the police and nurses in this country, or teachers, and I'm asking them to cease and desist. Do not judge a person until you have walked
in their
shoes.
They're stretched.
Okay?
Yeah, I know.
Do not judge them. Do I want to give more? Yes. But I understand that we have things that we have to do. I must fix the accounts of the country. I didn't come in and act like IMF and say, okay, you have to cut your expenses because you're spending too much money. I said to the IMF, I'm going to ring fence these expenses. I'm going to create new revenue. So let me give you an example. If you have a husband and wife living in a home and they have young kids, and one is earning $4,000 a month, another one is earning $3,000 a month, when you go to the bank to borrow money, they look at both salaries, they look at the jobs you have, they're going to lend you the money on the $7,000, right? Now, if you need other expenses, if you're now borrowing money where your monthly payments are $4,000 a month, the bank's going to say to you, no, I can't lend you any more money.
Because you have to pay bills and you have to pay.
Now, when one of your sons or your daughters now graduates from university and gets a job and decides to live at home and is now making $3,000 or $4,000 by working at Ojo, the bank says, okay, I can lend you more money as long as you're going to assign that revenue.
Yes.
Government's no different. What did I do? I didn't touch the tax revenue or the VAT revenue or the income tax or the corporate tax revenue or the duties that we're collecting at the ports. I left that to deal with our current operation. What I did is I increased the airport tax from $25 to $98 per passenger. I put a gas tax on of $1.50. New money. That's money that didn't exist before. We generated $100 million in new revenue. We put that money aside, and that is what we've been using to finance the project.
Okay. Finally, we actually get an explanation as to that, because there's been so much going on out in the open about that.
Let me tell you, in the live chat right now, people are saying that, hey, we wanted to get this information.
And
Alan is speaking tonight. Alan is speaking, and you're actually getting a lot of support in the live feed right now.
So that's good. Right. Because we're actually getting into the inside. And I think if you asked Winston and all the discussions we've been having as young persons, we wanted to get into the breakdown of actually what's going on administration-wise. Because they're undecided voters. They're new voters who want to know exactly what's going on.
So when we came in 2016, we said that by the end of our first term, we would have brought the unemployment rate from 25% to 15%.
Okay.
By 2019, just before COVID, it was down to 16%.
Okay. And then we lowered the youth unemployment from 48% to 31%.
Correct.
Yes, we did that.
Okay. Then we said, now, I love this slide because people say they want to ching, ching, ching. Right? Ching, ching, ching is that there was a bunch of people who did not have a job, and by 2019 they had jobs. So what's that? Ching, ching, ching.
In the pockets, yes.
Okay. We said that we would have an aggregate, which means that if you add up the growth rate every year, by the time we got to the 5 years, that we would have an aggregate growth rate of 12%.
Okay.
By 2019, before COVID, the aggregate growth rate was 11%.
Wow.
Okay. When we came in, the debt to GDP was 62%. We had brought it to 59%. Now, that's what I'm saying to young people. When they say Shastney is spending all this money, all right, and putting the country into debt, you cannot spend all of this money and the debt to GDP goes down.
Sure.
Mathematically, it's an impossibility.
Yeah.
Okay? So the reason is because you had 11% growth rate, right? And your debt only increased by 3% per year. So you actually, for the first time, your growth rate was growing higher than your debt rate. And so that means that the debt to GDP went down because the money that we were spending was creating economic activity. So one of the biggest things that we did was to lower the VAT rate. Ching, ching, ching. But it was in lowering that VAT rate that people now had the confidence to reopen their small businesses and hired people. And more jobs were being created. And there was more money being spent. So if you take Ojo Labs and ITEL BPO, every single month, the two companies pay $4.5 million in salaries.
Wow.
That's money that didn't exist before, you know.
And let me tell you, a friend of mine told me that she made a flat rate of between $1,500 to $2,000 plus a commission. So it came up to almost $4,000, $5,000. I was like, oh, wow.
The jobs at St. Jude's for almost a year and a half, $1.5 million a week. Sorry, $1.5 million a month in salaries. The Grace Water Intake, the Wasco building, the buildings that Mr. Dyer here was building. What was all that creating? Jobs. Ching, ching, ching.
Yeah.
Okay. The fishermen come in. As they get to the dock.
Because people have ching, ching, ching.
People have money.
Ching, ching, ching. Yes.
Okay, so they're making money. So they keep bringing up this thing, oh, we're penalizing the fishermen because of the gas tax. If a fisherman is not going out to fish, he doesn't use gas.
Exactly.
If he doesn't use gas, he doesn't pay. Versus charging him a license fee, because if he has a license fee, regardless of whether he goes out or not, he has to pay. So we say, pay
when you go out to fish.
As you earn.
Yeah.
Yes, much better.
So this whole idea, how do you make this distinction that a fisherman is coming to the gas station to pick up gas for his boat? And not saying, okay, well, if I go with a tank, I can fill it up and then I'll fill up my car with the tank afterwards. Right? And the same fisherman has to be able to use the road. And so there is a difference between onerous tax and fair tax. They get their equipment duty free, right? We help them every time we can. We help, and look, it's important. I don't regret that. In fact, the money that we were going to be putting in, that we've been putting into the fisheries complex for all those years, what the government has said is that we will buy the fish. And the fish that we're going to buy now will be used to help the vulnerable people of our country, so we can give them protein, and also to be part of our school feeding program.
Nice.
Because it's an expense we already have, but let's make sure we support them. Yeah. Let's make sure we support our farmers. But this government is about developing small businesses, not just in words, but in putting the infrastructure in place to allow them to do that. So whether it's the tea village, whether it's going to be Sandy Beach, whether it's Hummingbird Beach, okay, whether it's the Castries Market, look at the vendors. Look what the condition they used to have to vend in before.
Especially in Soufrière.
Correct.
And they're actually building some thing for young entrepreneurs or farmers in Soufrière, right?
Yes.
They're building something right now.
Yes. And the point is that, you know, we got off the track because you talked about the digital economy.
Yes.
So this is an opportunity, and I want our young people to know this, an opportunity for you to have a world-class job earning a world-class income.
Online.
Yes, online.
Okay? And still staying at home, which is no different than what I wanted for the people from Miku South. I said, look, I'm proud about the roads, and I'm proud about the water, and I'm proud about the sporting facilities. But the thing that I am the most proud about is the young people I've seen who've come back to the constituency because they don't have to have a job in Castries. And the difference is that income in St. Lucia is not individual, it is household.
Correct.
So when the mother and the father are there and the uncle and the auntie are over there, and then you have the son over there and the daughter over here, and they're all helping, this is when we are at our richest.
Yes.
But when they cannot be there and have to spend the money to commute up north or to rent a place up north, it's not only the money they've lost, but it's the time.
Another thing I always say that if you develop V4, the south, right? Many young people are moving from the south and they're heading to Castries for jobs. And people in Castries right now cannot get jobs. So if you develop the south, these people will go back to the south, and the people in Castries, will stay in Castries to work.
And that's happening already.
Exactly.
And the fact is that what we're doing is the north was congested.
That's what I'm saying. I always tell people.
So we have to fix the new north-south highway in order to allow cargo, freight, and people to move freer within the country. Imagine for those of us who've gone to Barbados, if Barbados didn't have the ABC highway.
Wow.
If Jamaica had not done the highway between Ochi, Montego Bay, and Kingston, right? This is a catalyst.
Yep.
It frees things up. The constraint that we had. And the saddest story is Vieux Fort. You have an international airport. You have a deep water harbor
right there.
You had factory shelves that were empty for 26 years, boss. And that's when we start talking about. And I want us to understand that concept of output per square mile, and this nonsense of an argument that goes on about tourism in our. Oh, Shastnik only talks about tourism. Every growth in tourism is growth in agriculture, is growth in manufacturing, it's growth in the orange economy.
Actually,
they don't conflict with each other. They support each other.
I've always had that argument.
You see, Dubai, the oil industry is actually going down. It went down, and they're actually depending on tourism. And because of COVID, tourism went down about 60-70%, and they had to send all the Sri Lankans, Pakistans home, and everything was just shutting down. Dubai is actually going down because of COVID.
Yeah.
And you know what's an interesting story? And again, it's about understanding the value of land. So the most expensive land, I guarantee you, in the next 10 years in St. Lucia will be between Vieux Fort and Soufrière.
Okay?
At least I already between the Vieux Fort and Soufrière, so I'm okay.
And the reason why is because when you start seeing the infrastructure that's going in, and the desire of people wanting to live in that area. Okay? And then included in that will then eventually become the Mikus all the way to Denry.
And I think you got that vision from a young man riding from Labrie to Vieux Fort. Riding from Labrie to Vieux Fort, you could remember.
Yes.
You know, I passed along that way riding that horse, and you know, I could remember.
Yeah.
And the vision is there.
Okay? And so economic development is about people. It's not about concrete or anything else. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't do it right and people aren't going to benefit, then it's wrong. And I have to say to you, as young people, y'all are so lucky, because the digital economy or the digital industry is creating economies of scale, creating a global economy that didn't exist before. And that's why, look, I'm very proud. I mean, when I think you were there that day when I said to the people of our party, the goal as to when we would achieve a milestone in this country will be when that we can go to the United States of America without a visa.
Okay, voila, you said that. Right there in the comments. People say that I'm still waiting on when we can go to the US without a visa.
And guess what? It's a process.
Yes.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
And to get there, you can be there. Are there countries in the world in which there are visa-free access to the United States? The answer is yes.
Yes.
So history tells you the journey. Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Aruba, all of these places. So what's the commonality is that the standard of living in those countries is high enough that the persons do not want to migrate. They want to visit, they want to do business, but they don't want to migrate. Whereas when you come from a country in which it's impoverished, the schools are not of standard, the medical system is not of standard, that young people don't see any hope, they're going to go. So the goal here of this United Workers' Party and the idea of building a new St. Lucia was accepting that what we had was mediocre. And that we were bold enough to say, we want to be the best. And in being the best, we will get it. And that will be, remember I say to you, we must be able to measure it. The ultimate success of what we're going to do and what this sacrifice is about, your parents, your grandparents made one of the greatest sacrifices in our country. That they were the vendors, that they were the hard farmers. And what did they save their money for? To send their children to school.
I always make that
and
statement.
to do what? To become doctors and accountants and lawyers, because these were international jobs, because they wanted something better. And I'm saying to our own generation, there's an old thing that you say in the gym. No pain, no gain. No gain.
No guts, no glory.
And the worst thing to do is to go through pain and not make sure you gain.
That's the thing.
And how do you do that? It's discipline.
Yes. Keep on doing, keep on going. Don't
but you
stop.
have to be disciplined.
Yes.
You have to be motivated. You can go and work out in a gym and lose no weight.
That's true.
You can go and train as an athlete and not run faster. It's not the amount of hours that you put in.
Techniques as well.
And the dedication. You must be motivated. Do we want that? How badly do we want that? But if we're going to sit here and blame everybody else for our mediocrity, if we're going to blame other people for what we don't have, I can assure you, save your breath. Ain't nobody listening.
That's true.
It's true.
People, they're not listening to your sad stories.
No.
They don't listen to your
They
sad
have sadder
stories.
stories than ours.
Yes.
We all have our story.
Yes, all do.
We have been blessed, but we must apply ourselves.
And I could tell you, in my 28 years on this island, that's the first time I'm seeing major roadworks happening.
Yes.
And I could tell you, and I have my car for about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years, and every 7-8 months I used to buy suspension parts, going to Babuno, and now I don't even have to think about buying suspension parts anymore. So now I have to put that money into something else now.
But guess what? All the money we've spent is only 1/3 of the roads.
Wow. And the bus drivers now, the bus
1/3.
Majority of the bus drivers don't even complain.
And we're talking
anymore.
about 1/3 of maybe a little bit of them have been new roads. Most cases has been refurbishing existing roads.
Yes, yes.
Right? And this is why I'm saying to us that we need to improve our economy, that we can generate our own money. So ultimately where you want to get to is you don't have to borrow money. That you're making extra money and you're using that money to build your schools. Sir John had a great story. I want to share it with the young people. I remember it like yesterday when he told it to me. He said to me, Alan, there's 2 types of investments you can make as a government. You can make investments in squares and you can make an investment in balls. Okay? He says, a square never moves.
Ball roads.
So infrastructure, a school, whatever, it takes much longer for it to have an impact. But a ball rolls. And in rolling creates other things to happen. And what you must find is the balance between the two. If you build too many squares, then you're not going to move.
No, not at all.
But if you build too many balls, it's going to cause chaos.
Yes.
So you must find that balance. That balance can only be determined by us, by our values. And this is why we use, in today's modern world, how do we measure success? Quality of life.
Yeah.
What is quality of life? Quality of life is that I work, but I also have time to play.
Yeah.
Okay? And that in working, that I don't destroy my environment. Right? And we find this balance. And are we going to get it right all the time? The answer is no, you don't. But you learn from your history and you make sure it doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah.
And that's why they say the Indians, North American Indians, were brilliant. They learned how to live within their environment. We came in and destroyed a lot of things. Africa, the history of Africa was learning to live within your environment.
Right, within the environment.
You know, it's the great story. I don't know if you've heard of the Rasta man who was fishing. So you're sitting on the beach with this pole, and this American guy comes up and says, "What are you doing?" So Rasta man said, "I'm fishing." So the American says, "You're catching any fish?" I said, "Yeah, man." He says, "So what you do with the fish?" I said, "I'm gonna eat it, bring it home." He said, "Well, why don't you spend a couple of more hours here and catch some more fish?" So Rasta man said, "For what?" He says, "So you can make some money, sell some of your extra fish, and buy some more fishing poles." He said, "Buy more fishing poles for what?" He says, "So you can catch more fish." Rasman said, "Why want to do that?" He said, "Maybe you can make enough money, you can buy a boat." He said, "A boat, man?" He said, "Yes." "What you want a boat for, man?" He said, "Well, you can go out, you can catch more fish." He said, "What I want to do that for?" He said, "So you can make some more money and you can buy a whole bunch of boats." He said, "A whole bunch of boats? What am I going to do for all them boats?" So you're going to catch more fish. He said, "What am I going to do for all the fish?" He said,
sell the fish.
You can sell them and one day you'll make enough money so you can relax. He said, "What you think we're doing now, man?"
So you have done all that.
Yeah, done all that.
He has done all that. So it's
Life has to be a balance, Chief.
Yes. So wherever you start is where.
Yeah.
Well, it's a balance. And you have to find what that balance is.
Yes.
Yeah?
So what you think I'm doing now, man?
So the rest of man was way ahead of him.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want to highlight some of our achievements as the United Workers' Party administration from 2016 until now. And we have lowered youth unemployment from 48% to 31%.
Before COVID.
NAPs over 700 graduates. Repairs to all schools from 1 million to 10 million.
And NAP, what was NAP? NAP was the NICE program.
Actually, the NICE program was 3 years. It had
Right.
gotten
So
to its final
1,100 people that were paid $1,500 a month. Okay, for a contract. And the contract was only on a yearly basis. Right? So it means they couldn't go and borrow money or anything else. And it was people who were being employed out of the Prime Minister's office. So the Prime Minister was the one making the decision as to who was going to be hired.
Okay.
And those persons were put to work in the civil service without going through the Public Service Commission.
Okay.
So NAP was one part of the NICE program.
Okay.
So the NAP program was training the kids to go to the cruise industry.
Hospitality sector.
And the hospitality sector here locally. And also subsidize the salaries for a year and a half for the persons who went to OJO.
Okay.
So 450 people benefited from that subsidy.
And to cut you short, I have some friends of mine, they said they were under the NICE program and they were on contract, and when UWP won, they got permanent into government, but all the time they were just on contract for the years.
So you see that stories we need to, but also
we are united.
The one that stands out in the entire list, because I have a list of over 20 something, repairs to all schools from $1 million to $10 million
a year,
right? And then I hear that the United Workers' Party administration does not care about education. So
right,
then the figures
and remember, we have 133 schools.
Yes.
So we've spent $30 million. Okay? So you take the Babino school, secondary school. We spent over $1 million just on that school. And we're just touching the surface.
Wow.
And yet what was being assigned to the Babino school before was 8,000 EC dollars a year.
Wow. Oh, that's why it used to be so bad. I went there.
So the bathrooms, the windows. I mean, I went there, honestly, in Latoya, I was shocked.
It used to be a mess before.
The bathrooms were like a war zone.
I went there. No, she's laughing, but I could tell
I
you.
understand what you're saying. I trust me, I understand what you're saying. Wi-Fi in schools, double the number of scholarships available. GNet in Castries, Canaries, Denry North, Meekwood North, Viewfort South. Okay,
and Meekwood South as well.
And Meekwood South, Viewfort South. Okay.
We need in Babono too, man.
What?
I said we need in Babono.
You just want to get on the list. Greater investment in Carnival, more prize money for all categories.
But let's understand that. So when I came in, the St. Lucia Jazz Festival was no longer a jazz festival. It was only a jazz festival in name, which there's nothing wrong, because a lot of jazz festivals around the world, the same thing happened. They became musical festivals.
Okay.
But the problem is that the size of the festival was bigger than the capacity of the country.
Okay.
So the majority of hotel rooms were not being filled up by patrons. They were being filled up by production people. So I think the pinnacle of insanity was the last jazz festival the Labour Party did, where they paid $500,000 US for Mark Anthony. Okay?
What's that?
Don't repeat it up, please. You're going to give me a heart attack.
Okay? That becomes the insanity of it all. And this became ego. And every year, everybody wants a bigger artist and a bigger artist and a bigger artist. But meanwhile, they were giving away 4,000 tickets. So this was just $14 million just going out. There was no media coming. We had lost BET. So it had lost its marketing value, and it just became a big festival. Now, at that point, if it's only going to be a big festival, we said, let's bring it back to being a real jazz festival, because we can regain our notoriety as a jazz festival. But more importantly, the biggest festivals in St. Lucia should be our genre. So Carnival and Jeune Creole, because that platform now allows our music to go internationally.
Yes.
And guess what? We know through what's it called, soca and groovy soca, and what's the other one?
Dinner segment.
Well, Denry segment is by itself, right? That these genres, solutions can be the best.
Definitely.
Yes.
Can be the best. And the first year that we did it, Teddyson did the song Chipping Down the Road.
Yeah, chipping.
Right? And I remember it being the #1 song in New York.
Yes,
So when the radio stations are coming on,
yeah.
from St. Lucia, Teddyson, John, and it became big. And guess what? Like Islands in the Park, everybody wanted to come home. So jazz, Carnival now has grown and grown and grown. And also we're now applying the same standard, same stage, same lights, same production level that we did for the Jazz Festival. We're now doing it for Carnival.
Nice.
And the goal is, can we become the best carnival, summer carnival?
And let me tell you.
Okay. Eventually, I think that we can do better than Trinidad.
Although I miss
But I'm going to say to you,
Carnival.
that's down the road. But right now, the goal is to become the best summer carnival. And I think that we're there. When we did the Jeune Creole, and people said to me, Prime Minister, are you crazy? I said, what do you mean? I said, nobody's going to come and listen to La Rose and La Marguerite.
It was amazing.
It was big.
Amazing.
And we did it where?
Amazing.
Vieux Fort.
Best.
Okay. And we did it on the concrete road.
Yeah.
Now the first year we went, they put a little stage. I said, what are y'all doing? I said, when I tell y'all that I want the same standard as the Jazz Festival,
I want
that's what I want. So the next year they moved the stage to the other side of the road. Yeah? They still didn't put it high enough. And I remember Boots standing on top of that stage. Okay? And there was people for days listening to who? La Marguerite and La Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? The vendors, they had over 110 vendors. They sold everything out. Now,
even Aki's.
now the next year, I said, we're going back to Vieux Fort. They said, no, you can't go back to Vieux Fort, blah, blah, blah. Everybody fighting me. I said, what do you mean can't go back to Vieux Fort? That's now how it's done. I said, that's how it's going to be done now. The same Kenny Anthony and the same Musa were playing up the fact that they were saying I was taking the festival away from Choiseul. I said, nobody said don't go to Choiseul.
But Choiseul had it as well.
Yeah.
I said you can have both.
Let me
Because
tell
you
you.
can't do both. I said we are doing both.
Both was still
Yeah.
Both was stand up. Let me tell you, I did not know where
And the traffic?
to stay.
The traffic
I
was.
didn't know where to stay. I went to before, then I ended in Choiseul.
And then now, after we've done all that, I saw a big opportunity. 40th anniversary of independence.
Oh my Lord.
Now let me tell you this.
Let me tell you.
We need a second part of that interview.
Let me tell you something. I came Prime Minister, and I remember they put me for independence. We were at the Darren Sammy Stadium on a big stage. There ain't nobody there. I mean, there are a couple of people waving a little flag. Okay? I said, no. So when the 40th anniversary is coming, I said, boy, Alan, there's no way I can do this again. So I said, because of the 40th anniversary, let me try something new. And we did the whole thing in Castries, right? And we then did the parade. And we did the music where we shut down Castries. The stage we did on Jeremy Street with old time soca. One of my favorite nights in St. Lucia. That thing, the stage looked like it was just, the Jeremy Street was designed
for it.
I can't tell you the fight I had. Then you had the stage down by the William Peters Boulevard. Okay? Then we had the road session. And people said that's never going to work with the parade. Right? And then we did the fireworks that night. So we said the whole thing is going to start, and we raised the big flag. Yeah? About St. Lucia Pride. And every single artist that performed over that weekend were from where? St. Lucia.
And let me tell you
And we raised the
level?
standard. Okay? So this is what we're saying about being an international standard. The diplomats didn't really like coming over for things. Now they book in advance. And my wife, I just want to thank you, honey, for the incredible ball that she did, or balls that she has done. The first time she did a ball, she raised $150,000 in one night. That had never been done in St. Lucia. By the time we did the last ball, before COVID, right?
Yeah.
$800,000 in a night.
Yeah,
and that money is to go to whom?
St. Lucia.
St. Lucia.
I remember you sponsored the Royal St. Lucia Police Force with some of
Yes.
Correct.
monies. Yeah.
And a lot of the NGOs.
Yes.
So what I'm saying to you is that these are opportunities that we're going to waste all the time, right? And I'm proud of the fact that our government has spearheaded. And there are things we say that once you've done it, they will never go back. Okay? Nobody can come and bring another festival to be bigger than Carnival.
No.
And I'm telling you, see 2019 Carnival, I jumped that year. That was one of the best carnival. And at the same time you actually incorporated, you interject the monies into Carnival.
Yes.
That time.
And that's the same time he was on the road with his shades and everything.
Now remember, people say, oh, politics. Let's go back a little bit. When I became Minister of Tourism, that's 2006, I put $1 million into Carnival. That was unheard of, because the most money that Carnival would have ever gotten would be like 100,000. Yeah, I put $1 million. So John called me up. He said, man, I gave you this money. You're spending the money on Carnival? What are you doing? I said, Sir John, trust me. After Carnival, first phone call.
Sir John.
Sir John. He said, Alan, congratulations. He got it. He got it. He saw the enthusiasm. We left that for the Labour Party. They forgot all, they left Carnival alone and went back to that jazz festival. It's not about not doing an event in Marcia. Okay? It was about the fact that you had a jazz festival, but you were doing reggae music and zouk music in Marcia. And that what you were doing is increasing the cost because you were bringing all the people down 2 weeks earlier to set up in Marcia. I'm saying, look, if you want to do an event in Marcia, do an event in Marcia. Do Carnival. You don't have to wait for jazz. But what are you doing? Because the Labour Party has sold it that the jazz festival was for who? Bourgeois? I never met the bourgeois people there because everybody got a free ticket.
Complimentary.
Complimentary. You didn't have to be bourgeois. But it's about branding your country. And more importantly, when you can see success through your own people, it's uplifting. Oh, that's where so-and-so came from. How many times have you ever heard it? The highest per capita GDP or per capita of Nobel Prizes in the world. People go, wow, St. Lucia. It's about being the best.
We will be the best.
We are the best. We just don't know it.
So let's manifest it.
Yes, we'll manifest it. But I think we definitely need a part 2 to this. So please let us know when you're available.
Yeah, the time is way
past the time. We've gotten very carried away. In some of the stuff that we have done, accomplished, I will just highlight a few more. Double the school feeding program, double school transportation program, child adoption bill, music recording studio in Grosley, new preschools in Moshi, Jackmel, Miku, rehabilitation of 10, new Shozel Secondary School, new Dennery Primary School, synergy for Castries Central, major sporting facilities upgraded,
and the Grosley Academy.
And there's so much more, but definitely we are going to be having a part 2 with our Prime Minister in studio. I thank you so much for tuning in and for just staying with us in this long interview, but it was actually a long, informative interview, exciting. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence again.
To cut you short, let me tell you, somebody said in the live chat, PM, you're looking so relaxed. I don't think you want to leave the studio. Stay till when nobody comes in the morning.
Oh my
goodness! Yeah, so thank you very much, PM.
If you can call my wife and get permission, no problem.
Yeah, so.
All right, so thank you very much. It was very informative, especially that you gave us the information behind all of these projects and where the monies were going in. As young persons, we really wanted to know that. So thank you so much for not even playing the blame game or just being actually honest with us and actually going into detail. So thank you once again. And this was Let Me Tell You Youth Empowerment with your girl Natoya
and Winston Double.
And also Boss Al, Lala, graced us with his presence from Beaufort North.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to see you soon.
Yes, he's the hype. He's the hype.
He's definitely the hype.
And the thing about it, last week when the other party was doing all the stuff going around, Boss Al was like, you know what? We're too dead. We're not alive enough. Flabo train, and they start moving around.
Don't forget, let's go to the Flabo train. It's going to be in Miku. So let Al do that, and then we'll sign out.
Tomorrow at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. we'll be in Philadelphia Road, Geges by Mikud. Big up Antigel. Who we voted Antigel for sure? And then we're going to La Pointe, Gibbs Place. That's on Friday and Saturday. So many places to go. I have not picked a place, but very soon. And as I'm sitting there on the 26th, we'll be in
Boss Aldies.
No. 26 will be PM's place, Mikud South.
So when you come into Babylon,
so first of all, we'll get the light coming on, and then we have everybody coming there. It could be white or yellow, any normal color you want, but preferably yellow.
So we have to make a decision. We're going to do the Deriso playing field, or we're going to do the Bosha Park.
Let's have that discussion out
there. I get my people, so look out for the Flabo train.
If we go to Bosha Park, you have to bring your swimsuit.
Yes. The park for the kids, and then after early on, send the park for the kids, and later go.
We will plan. So my people, the Flabo train will be passing you. If you're the Flabo train to call, just don't be afraid to call me. 724-0049 on Facebook. Al Prince Boss. Papek William, I'm open to anybody, but call only for the Flabo train. We hopping up on the Flabo train. Et Supakawe, Sapa Philippe Jean-Pierre, c'est Alan Chasney. Saint Lucia must develop. That's why in my view, the PM say we don't need visa to go America. But we don't need no visa when we go to have our own America. So I'm going for America. We don't need to go there. We'll have our own. All right.
I agree.
That's it from me. Until then.
Thank you so much. Once again, this is where we say good night.
Good night.
And safe journeys to those persons who are knocking off from their jobs at the hotel. And we are going to have safe journeys home as well.
And big up to all of them. Huh? I mean, these guys have been putting themselves out to take care of their families. I'm so happy the protocols have been working. I want to thank all the firemen, and particularly the ambulance drivers, the policemen, the nurses, the security persons, all the persons that are doing these jobs to help us. There's an amazing statistic, Natoya. When people were telling us that we didn't have the right policies, again, the evidence. Last month, we got 14,300 U.S. arrivals.
Okay.
Wow.
So in comparison to May of 2019, and remember, 2019 was the best year ever in the history of St. Lucia. Ever.
I could tell you.
We recovered 82% of our U.S. market.
Okay.
As of yesterday, remember I said in the whole month of May we had 14,300. As of yesterday, we had 10,300 arrivals.
Wow, nice.
So it means that we're actually going to exceed the number of U.S. arrivals in June and July than we had in 2019.
Nice.
And more importantly, the U.S. market by itself, because the UK market is still closed, the Canadian market is still closed, the U.S. market by itself will mean that we recovered 50% of our arrivals. Now, you have to make some comparisons. So when it's time to blow your horn, you have to blow it. There was a story that came out today about New York City. Okay, and the subway has recovered 44% of its business pre-COVID. Yet we've recovered 50% of our tourism since COVID.
Nice.
And that could not happen with all those persons at the airport, at Hunora, that do all that work of processing people, the taxi drivers, my friends at the Red Caps, okay, the customs officers, the immigration officers, everybody who put themselves on the line to help us and to recover our economy. And I want to say there are people who have suffered, Natoya.
Yes, they are.
Okay? And you and I have had that discussion, particularly the single mothers, because they get a lot of support from other people, and when other people's income was affected, it affected them.
Yeah.
And that's why I kept on saying to St. Lucians, we need to be each other's brother's keeper. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I appeal the people. The government was struggling. We paid salaries, we paid the debt. We covered all of the expenses. We did food subsidy programs. We did income support programs. We've been subsidizing almost 10,000 people's electricity bill.
Bus drivers.
It's still not enough.
Bus drivers.
Okay, I'm not even going to say it to you. I'm not going to even pretend for a moment. But it's what we could do. And that's why I was appealing to everybody in St. Lucia, be each other's brother's keeper. If you see somebody suffering next to you, help.
Definitely.
Help. Okay? Because this was a struggle. This wasn't just St. Lucia. This was global. But the fact is that the policies that we had of coexisting with COVID are now working. You're seeing the benefit. Other countries who are trying to open are struggling because they're getting COVID. They don't know how to deal with it. We have learned to coexist with it.
Yeah.
And this country is on the move. Right?
Definitely.
And the end, we're going to keep on saying, let's keep
working.
No change
All right, this was youth empowerment. Let me tell you, youth empowerment. Let's keep working.
No change required.
No change required.
Yes.
All right, and we're going to bring you some more information next week. We're going to bring you some surprising videos next week on the ground, especially our political leader on the ground as well. So keep it locked. We'll give you some more information, and thank you so much for tuning in. This was Let Me Tell You Youth Empowerment. Have a good evening.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Action speaks louder than words. Don't be deceived by all those fancy talkers. Action speaks louder than words. Say he'll turn your night into day, and a man can say he'll take your sufferings away, and a man can say he'll roll your dark clouds away. When it comes to doing, showing, you're gonna take some knowing. Yeah. Action speaks louder than words. Don't be deceived by all those fancy talkers, because action speaks louder than words. Don't be deceived by all those fancy talkers, cause anyone can say they'll build a world in a day. Anyone can say they'll make a stormy day bright. Anyone can say they'll put all wrong things right. But when it comes to doing, gonna take some knowing. If you must do some showing. Look here now. Action speaks louder than words. Don't be deceived by all those fancy talkers, because action speaks louder than words. Don't be deceived by all those fancy talkers.